I think they're about to start. They normally take about 5 minutes to wind up.
Commissioner Kalana.
What?
Commissioner Kalana. Thank you. Vice Chair Thompson. One thing for Can you hear us, Commissioner Kealoha?
I heard that, but I didn't really hear anything before that.
Maybe start again.
Okay, we will start again.
All right. Commissioner Hipolito is not here. Commissioner Lindsay.
Hello, my kako.
You guys speaking to the mic.
Aloha.
Commissioner Dicos.
Oh,
It's
when you push the button,
so
it
it's
turns off.
automatically on. If you push the button, it goes off.
Okay.
So you can move the thing and adjust.
I'm
There you
here.
go. Perfect.
Thank you. It's different. We're in a new space. Commissioner Kealoha.
Aloha, I'm at home currently alone.
I couldn't hear the last part of what you said. I'm so sorry.
I said I'm at home and I'm currently alone. My family could come home soon.
Great. Thank you. Vice Chair Thompson.
Thank you and good afternoon.
Chair Thayer.
I am here. Thank you. Okay, so we have established that we have quorum and we will go into our item B1, public hearing on the draft South Maui Community Plan. So as a reminder to everyone, at our last meeting, we got through section 1 of the plan, but we had a bunch of revisions to ask for. But we have that on our agenda and also section 2. But before, unless there's a new presentation from the department. Yeah, okay, go ahead, Director.
It's not a new presentation. I just want to take a second to make 2 apologies and then also do a little grounding moment. So first of all, I want to apologize for not being here last week. I was on the East Coast. I was in Cincinnati doing a presentation at the Congress for New Urbanism about, there we go, about the Lahaina recovery. And it went really well, but it was an opportunity we were invited to carry that message there. And so I wanted to be there for that. And so I was able to do that. And I appreciate staff's willingness to allow me to have that happen. And I apologize. I know my name came up as where the heck is Kate? I'm here now and I will be for the rest of the time. So I apologize for that. Also, the department is working on a letter with some suggested revisions. They're very minor. They do not take out any of the intent that was made by the community or by the CPAC, but they're just a reorganization of some of the items that are currently in. It's not done just yet. And again, that's my fault. So I apologize for that. But by the time you meet next time, there will be a letter regarding that. The last thing I just want to say is a quick reminder. This is not something you guys do every day. It's very unusual for you. Usually you're reviewing SMAs or other kinds of things like that on the project by project basis. I want to remind you just that you are a recommending body. So you're not the final decision on this. It's going to end up going to council and they're going to have that conversation. So I want that to take some weight off of you, that you don't have to get it exactly perfectly right. In fact, the CPAC spent 10 months, 12, something like that, several months nearly a year trying to get this exactly perfectly right. And so I just offer that to you as kind of a grounding for as you're thinking about changes to the plan, that you consider the work that's gone into it so far, and then also to, you know, where you are in the process, that you're not the final say, as you often are in some of the work that you do. You're not the final say here. So just be mindful of that. I think we can get through this, and I very much appreciate your attention to this. I think Vice Chair is the only one who's been through one before, if I'm not mistaken. So he knows how this goes. Hopefully it's even smoother than last time. But thank you so much for this time to be allowed to speak, and I appreciate all of your work.
Thank you. Just to clarify what you said, we're going to get a memo on that is revisions to exactly what sections?
Specifically sections 2 and 4. There may be revisions to section 3 as well, but we're going to discuss those internally. But we will provide a full list of potential revisions.
Okay.
For you to
but
consider.
If we get into section 2 today, would you be able to let us know?
Yep.
About those? Okay.
No, I think it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I think we can come back to it too. It's not like you have to close the book on it. We just have to re-notice on the agenda that we want to look at those sections again.
Okay.
So, and like I said, these are revisions to just ease the flow of the plan, ease the use of the plan, so that the will of the community is better, it is in alignment. And I'll give you an example. There are not a specific example, but there are several places throughout the plan where language is written as an action, but it's in a policy. And if you want something to be done, then it has to be in the action section. If you want something to be considered when a project is being reviewed, it needs to be in the policy section. So those are the types of tweaks that we'll be proposing to you. That happens every time, and it's okay. So nothing to get rid of, mostly to just adjust.
Okay. Yes, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Just a quick housekeeping one on there. Our table of contents at the very beginning, framework is on page 1, not 9, about West Maui Community Plan. This is the South Maui. That should be out. That's on page 2. How the plan changes on page 5, not on page 14. And West Maui yesterday, today, and tomorrow should be South Maui, and that's on page 6.
Mahalo, Commissioner. We will also have a hopefully short list of non-substantive changes just like that one. I appreciate it.
Good eye. Thank you. So before we get into our discussion today, we will open up for public testimony. Okay, so we have 2 people signed up to testify here in the gallery, and then we will go online. So the first person signed up is Wendy King, and Wendy will be followed by Jim Pereza.
Aloha, my name is Wendy King. I am a full-time resident of South Maui. I would like to testify in opposition to Section 2.2.25 of the South Maui Community Plan to, quote, phase out and convert existing vacation rentals to long-term housing, end quote. Over a decade ago, I legally purchased a vacation rental. I am not a rich mainland investor. I am a working class, hardworking Maui resident that worked extremely hard and saved my money to invest in my future. Now I feel you want to pull the rug out from under me. Please explain to me how this is just and fair to go back on an agreement that had already been in place when I purchased. I do not see anywhere in this plan a financial outline on how the plan will work. At the last meeting, I heard several questions from members of the audience and even planning commissioners asking how this will work in the financial plan. And to my shock, a county employee stated it wasn't required. This question is very important, and it should not be swept aside just because it's not required. In the plan, it's mentioned that 61% of South Maui residents work in tourism. Where is the 61% of people going to work if you eliminate their jobs? What industry is going to replace tourism industry, which is the biggest industry in Maui? How are our small businesses going to stay open? A lot of them didn't survive COVID, and they will not survive this as well. Where are we going to get the money that we're going to lose from the property tax dollars? I beg you, please do not approve a plan that can't be specifically shown in detail how it will financially succeed and sustain in the future. That's irresponsible to do so, and it will financially devastate the people of South Kihei, North Kihei, and South Maui, and the island as a whole. Mahalo for allowing me to testify today. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, 1 second. Any questions for the testifier? Vice Chair Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just want a quick one, and thank you for coming and testifying. And how long have you owned your unit there?
About 11, 12 years.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That was my only question.
Thank you.
Oh, I have a question. Can you restate the policy just to make sure I have it written down?
2.2.25.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions for the testifier? Seeing none, thank you. Okay, next here in the room is Jim Pereza, and then we'll go online.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Pereza. I'm also a full-time resident of Kihei. Thank you for allowing us all to give you our thoughts on the South Maui Community Plan. I realize the Planning Commission is an unpaid position, so not only do you get to work long hours for free, but you get the added bonus of us standing up here yelling at you. So we really do appreciate the work you do. I references section 2.2.25. I also would ask that portion be removed from the South Maui Community Plan. Over 50% of the vacation rentals on Maui are in South Maui. The Maui economy is built on tourism. Eliminating short-term rentals will be economic suicide. Just given a rough example calculation I worked up in my head, if there are 5,000 rental homes and there's 2 people in those homes and each person spends $50 a day, even at 80% occupancy, that is $150 million that you're removing from the local economy. Add that to the $30 to $50 million loss from property taxes. Where will the replacement dollars come from? Well, I haven't read the entire community plan. I'm guessing there's no information on what industry will be coming in to replace the kind of money. Our local government cannot afford this kind of income loss. We don't have the infrastructure to support a tech industry to recover that kind of money. Shipping costs for raw materials in and finished goods out is too expensive. We can't do manufacturing. The only thing we have an abundance of is axis deer, and it would take an awful lot of axis deer jerky to make up those kind of dollars. So I wholeheartedly agree that there is a shortage in affordable housing. Sadly, it's been that way for decades. I saw an article someone had copied from a newspaper in 1968 in Honolulu that housing costs were too expensive and affordable housing needed to be addressed. That was over 50 years ago. Eliminating short-term rentals is not a realistic, affordable option. If a one-bedroom condo is worth $1 million, even if the market were to crash and go down 40%, that's $600,000 loan. That would be a payment of $5,000 plus HOAs, another $1,000 or more, insurance and property taxes, another $1,000. That's $7,000 a month would cost a person to purchase that. And that's for a 600 square foot, 1-bedroom condo with 1 parking spot. To afford that, you would need an annual income of over 200,000 a year. I don't see too many of those jobs here on Maui. If short-term rentals are eliminated, thousands of jobs will be eliminated as well. Our local mom and pop restaurants and stores will not survive without tourists. Cool Cats and Cheeseburger in Paradise are both opening new restaurants in Kihei after losing their entire operations in Lahaina. Without that tourism, they'll both be back out of business in no time. And without any businesses, there'll be no need for workforce housing because we will have no jobs. It will be, like I said, economic suicide. The tourists that do come to stay on
3
Maui,
minutes.
thank you. The tourists that do stay on Maui are going to stay in resorts. That money will be going back to the mainland, to the corporate offices, not staying here locally.
Can you summarize last sentence?
That's about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the commission? Vice Chair.
Thanks for coming and testifying. And just, how long have you lived here on Maui?
I've lived on Maui. Actually, Saturday is my 3-year Maui-versary.
Well, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
And do you also own a short-term rental?
Yes, actually, yes. I
Okay.
bought a rental 11 years ago, had long-term tenants in there for 8 years, and my wife and I moved here and moved into that one. We recently bought another condo with the intent of selling our original one. So,
Okay, thank you for coming.
thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
If you're here and you want to testify, you can sign up on the list. But we'll go online and we'll come back in person. All right, so online we have Kevin Kraft followed by Dick Mayer.
Here. I am testifying against also 2.2.2.5.
Can you state your name for the record and you'll have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Kevin Kraft. So
Go ahead.
my wife and I have been coming to Maui since 1996. We love Maui, the people and the culture, and we hope to spend more time here in the future. We've never dreamed we would be able to own a small condominium in Maui, but we're able to in 2022. With the proposed elimination of short-term rentals, our asset will become a liability. Where we once made an income to support the taxes, fees, maintenance, and utilities, we will now have to work more to cover these. With the county's plan of further raising taxes on STRs, it will be even more of a financial hardship. I have been told STRs provide a substantial amount of Maui County's revenue, which supports affordable housing. STRs also provide jobs for many locals. All of the people we hire to work on our condominium are locals. My handyman is a local Hawaiian who is struggling because rentals are slow now. It affects his business and his family. He's talked about leaving the island, not because of housing, but because of his lack of work. I urge the council to consider the following suggestions to benefit all involved. Number one, allow STRs to continue to operate as transient accommodations or short-term rentals, thereby sustaining the county's revenue they generate. Number two, earmark taxes from STRs for affordable housing and identify appropriate construction sites to use those funds. Number three, consider creating an additional fund in which owners of STRs contribute, for example, $5,000 a year to an affordable housing fund for the next 5 years. That could raise an estimated $175 million for construction. I fully understand the desire to keep STRs out of local neighborhoods, but where our one-bedroom condominium is located, there are mainly tourists. I understand that hundreds of STRs available for long-term rental currently remain unfilled. Maybe local Hawaiians are looking for different types of accommodations than what STRs offer in places other than South Maui. That is something that is affordable and family-oriented in a local rather than tourist neighborhood. Completely eliminating STRs will give fewer job options to local Hawaiians and less of a voice to advocate for themselves. Competition is good for the consumer, and I would offer good for the economy of Maui and the local Hawaiian business person. Please do not create more victims of the fires by implementing a ban on existing STRs. Please allow them to operate as transient accommodations, accomplishing the goal of sustaining revenue for building affordable housing that locals want and places they want to be while preserving job options for them. Mahalo for considering my testimony.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the commission? Seeing none, thank you again for being here. Next
Thank
up
you.
is Dick Mayer, followed by Lisa.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
My name is Dick Mayer, and since everybody else is indicating residency, I've been resident of Maui for 57 years. I was on the Maui Planning Commission when the first plans were being made in South Maui, when Wailea was going through back in the early 1970s. So I've got a lot of background on this. And I was also the vice chair of the Maui Island General Plan Advisory Committee. One of my major concerns is that many times you will be working as commissioners and prior to you, the CPAC, and prior to them, the planning department, in putting together a community plan. Many of the community plans we've had in the past, and even the Maui Island plan, have not been properly implemented because there is no financial basis to operate them. And that's why when your planning director, Blystone, asked you to look at the whole plan as you begin this whole process, I too would like you to look at the whole plan, but it's missing the financial sections that are required in the Maui County Code. And so I urge you to pass a special resolution now requiring that the three components of a good financial plan that are required in the Maui County Code be added so that when you get to section 4 at the end of your chores, at the end of your meetings, you will have all three sections, which will include a capital improvements element, a financial element, budget, and everything else, so that when you folks finish your work and the council adopts the plan, there will be a good financial basis for the plan to be put into operation, rather than just a list of projects, etc., with many times saying to be determined, to be determined. You do not know whether this plan will be able to be operated. I say this especially because the CPAC added hundreds and hundreds of acres in North Kihei, in addition to all of the already entitled areas in Wailea 670, R&T Park, McKenna. I do not believe that the plan you have in front of you right now is financially viable, and it will cause great commotion because the infrastructure will be inadequate, and all of the residents in South Maui, and I'm sad to say that there's no member of your commission who is from South Maui, and there's nobody right now who will be able to voice those concerns to you, but hopefully that will happen, that we will be able to have all of the financial elements that you will be able to do this. And please ask the department not to do the trivial thing that's in section 4, which is a partial effort, but does not do it properly. Please get all three elements incorporated into the plan as it goes forward. And I thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the commission? Oh, Commissioner Digos?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your testimony today. Can you clarify, given your long-term time here and dealing with a lot of these plans, has financial sections been included in previous plans, community plans?
Usually only half-hearted efforts have been made, and usually not adequate to be able to operate the county budget annually. So for example, when the county goes to put its budget together, the mayor, when he draws up the budget, and then when the council adopts it, they should be able to go to each area of the island and look, what are the needs? What does the plan call for? Whether it be roads or intersections or wastewater or parks or whatever it is, they will be able to put into their annual budgets the things that the plan calls for. Right now, there's no capability, given the existing plans, to do that kind of process to get really what the community is really asking for and what's needed. I mean, you can put in hundreds of houses. For example, that 600 acres in North Kihei that's part of this plan will need so much infrastructure, water, wastewater, schools, which is a state item, wastewater, etc., that you need to have the budget capability to do that. Otherwise, don't put it into the plan. If the money will not be there to take care of it, because otherwise all that traffic will come down on Pi'ilani Highway, and we know the state of Pi'ilani Highway right now. It's that kind of interaction that's very important. And past plans have only done little bits of that, and never have they been really implemented properly because the plans have not been developed properly. This could set a model for all future planning on the island.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Lindsay.
Thank you for your testimony today. What 3 specific pieces of information were you implying or saying? I wasn't super clear.
If I'll give you a section of the Maui County Code, so you'll see actually the legal basis for what you are supposed to do. It's Maui County Code, section 2.80B, like baby, .070.F. And it describes in detail the 3 separate components, including a capital improvement element, a financial element. I don't have the third one right now in front of me, but there are 3 elements there that are required. And I would urge you, especially the capital improvement element and the financial element, need to be included in the plan. Otherwise, you have not fulfilled the requirements that you're under obligation, really, to include in the plan.
Thank you.
Please look at that. And the reason I'm saying this now, even though you're working on the beginning of the project, if you can make that request now, that by the time you get to section 4 in 2 or 3 months, they will hope the plan department will hopefully have prepared those sections and have them ready for you to discuss.
Any further questions?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions from the commission? Seeing none, thanks again for testifying.
Best wishes in your project.
Up next is Lisa, followed by Aaron Mukai.
Hi, I second everything I just heard.
Oh, sorry. Can you state your name for the record first?
This is Lisa. Yeah, I second everything I just heard, and I have a question. Once this bill got introduced, I'm hearing a lot of negative short-term rental owners, greedy short-term rental owners. And I'm just wondering, do we have anyone representing the positive side of this? On the board?
Sorry, I think you cut out for a second. Can you repeat what you just said?
Yes, since this bill's been introduced, you hear all the negative of, greedy short-term rental owners, mainland investors. Do we have anyone on your board representing us and all the positive that it brings to the island? That's my only question.
We can't do question and answer right now. We can just hear out your comments that you have in I guess the recent. So we're talking about the South Maui Community Plan today. Are you referring to the short-term rental bill that we're?
Yes.
Okay, so we're not reviewing that today. There is the testifiers previous to this have been talking about a policy that is within the South Maui Community Plan that refers to vacation rentals. But if you want to testify on actually the short-term rental bill itself, we are taking that up on Tuesday, June 25th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I guess we'll move on to the next testifier, which is Aaron Mukai, who will be followed by Zoltan. I don't know how to say your last name, sorry. But Aaron, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Erin Mukai. I'm a project coordinator with Pacific Rimland. I'd appreciate providing testimony to the commission in consideration of certain policies of Goal 2.2. I also have this as written testimony, which I'll provide directly to the department's email address. First, policy 2.2.13 as it relates to the use of Green Streets principles. We suggest the addition of encourage the use of Green Streets principles for flexibility in developing projects while still meeting the intent of the policy. Some projects may not be able to provide the entirety of these improvements in their design. Secondly, policy 2.2.21 as it relates to affordable housing obligations being met within the boundaries of the community plan sub-area and not being able to use credits. This policy is in direct conflict with Chapter 2.96 of the Maui County Code. The code allows the application of credits to satisfy workforce housing requirements. The code also allows the development of workforce housing across the county, regardless of a project's community plan boundary. As drafted, the policy is not only in conflict with what is allowable by code, but could have significant and unintended impacts on the development of housing, including affordable housing on the island. Third, policy 2.2.37, as it relates to allowing no further development unless
Hold on, Erin, one second. I think other people online need to mute their calls. We're getting a lot of feedback here. Can everybody online mute yourself, please? Somebody's really loud. Okay, thank you. Sorry, Erin. Can you put time back on her and please resume your testimony?
Okay, thank you. Third, policy 2.2.37, as it relates to allowing no further development unless infrastructure, public facilities, and services are available prior to or concurrent with the new development. This policy restricts development and may limit growth on the island. When a project is proposed, its infrastructure requirements and the timing of those requirements are developed in consultation with appropriate state and county agencies. Fourth, and this is the last policy that I'm providing testimony on, is relative to policy 2.2.47 as it relates to the Maui Planning Commission and South Maui Advisory Committee reviews. We feel this policy isn't necessary as there's already a process in place for the applicable review of projects through these bodies. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the commission? Seeing none, thank you again. Let's see, up next is Zoltan Rudolix, followed by Peter Law.
You had that almost right. It's Rudolich, pronounced like it had a CH on the end of it.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good afternoon, members. I am testifying against a portion of the community plan in South Kihei. This involves specifically parcels 2, 3, 9, plat 001, parcel 7, and then 3 additional parcels 2, 3, 9, 1, parcel 162 and 164, and parcel 23962, parcel 19. For some reason, these parcels are included into the open space or watershed, or not watershed, I'm sorry, a water basin, I guess. Parcel 7 has never flooded. We also have SMAs for these projects already, so I'm not understanding how this could possibly be included in rezoning. We have spent well over $1.5 million on one of these parcels in order to obtain the permits, and we've been at it for over 3 years now. The departments that issue the permits are incredibly slow, cumbersome. Sometimes I even wonder whether they know what they're doing or not. We had on parcel 7, we had 81 units. 2 years ago, we went to market. We sold every one of them out within 72 hours. We had over 2,700 people apply for those homes. We were not able to get the permits in time because we were getting impeded at every step of the way. Now, those same people that qualified for those homes, we qualified 500 of them, and we qualified them through our local banks at 3% and 4% interest rates. Those same folks will never, ever be able to purchase a home again. because the interest rates are now at 7%. I doubt we'll ever see those rates ever again. So we had 81 families on Maui that now will be renters for the rest of their lives, more than likely. In any case, I'm just testifying against the fact that someone in that community or some group in that community decided one day to just up and include these 4 parcels as open space. If Maui County is wanting or not wanting to have these parcels developed, I'm okay with it, or I should say we are okay with it, as long as we get a fair price paid for the properties. So that's all I have to say. So thank you for the time.
Sure. Any questions from the commission? Vice Chair Thompson?
Yeah, thanks for coming and testifying. And I have a question. Did you go meet with the South Community Plan? Did you go testify in one of their meetings?
Yes.
Okay. Were they receptive at all to you?
Actually, there was no response whatsoever. I mean, it seems like you testify and, oh, well, okay, thank you, goodbye. I don't know what to tell you. It's just the fact that it doesn't seem like people care one way or the other.
Well, thanks for sharing, and we do care.
Well, it's nice to hear.
Any other questions from the commission? I do have a follow-up question. Can you say the second parcel number again?
Let's see. 2391 parcel 162 and 164. And then in that same grouping was 23962 parcel 19. The very first one was 239001 parcel 7.
Okay, thank you. And then just to clarify, you said you had an SMA permit or you applied?
We have an SMA permit. We
You
have
got
one.
it, but it
Yes.
lapsed, it sounds like?
No, we actually got it. We actually got it extended. It's good until June of 2026. This parcel has been trying to get developed. Roderick Fong was the one that we purchased the property from, and he's been trying to get this thing developed since 2007. We acquired it in December of 2020, and it's taken this long, and we still do not have our final permits. I mean, I don't understand what those people were doing down there at the engineering or the people that are reviewing our plans.
Okay.
I'm sitting there paying 12% interest on the money. I have $13 million sitting in a construction loan, and I have not been able to touch it because they are not approving our plans. Just taking time. I can't believe 3 years.
Thank you for sharing that with us. There's not a lot we can do about that, but we are viewing.
I understand. I'm just venting at this moment. But in any case, I'm against trying to put our properties into open lands.
Roger that. Heard loud and clear. We hear your frustration. Thank you for testifying.
All right. Thank you much.
Next up is Peter Law, followed by Rob Weltman, and then we are going back in person.
Aloha. This is Johan Lau. I am testifying on behalf of myself as an individual. And I just want to comment, I guess, generally on policies. Really, there shouldn't be language like encourage or to the extent possible or anything like that, because that makes a policy useless. It can't be enforced. So I think if you're going to change anything to encourage, just remove the policy completely, because otherwise you're basically misleading the public into thinking there's stuff that is good in the plan, but then it has no teeth when it comes to actually doing the permitting. So use strong language like require, stuff like that. Specifically, I do want to comment on the policies that reference the Gulch map on page 107. So I think most of you know I worked in the Long Range Division, and I was there from the beginning of the South Maui Community Plan process, and I left maybe halfway or 2/3 of the way through. So those gulches, I want to explain a bit of the process. 3 of us GIS guys worked on those at different points in time. The gulches are based on state LiDAR data, which is not like super high res, but it's high enough resolution that you can see stream beds and stuff like that pretty well. And the gulches should be areas that have at least 5 acres flowing into them. That was the analysis I did. And really the defining and protecting those gulches is about protecting watersheds and preventing a lot of what we see now in Kihei, which I should say is where I live. You know, a lot of gulches have been filled in. A lot of them have had development in ways that really shouldn't have been done. And so protecting the gulches is kind of like the low-hanging fruit to protect the folks who are downstream, who are currently experiencing pretty bad flooding in a lot of places. And really also a way to force developers to do really good design where they incorporate open space, because I think we know it's easier to just level the entire landscape and get rid of the gulches. And we see the effects of that. We see the status quo, and I don't think the status quo is what we want to continue doing. So this really protecting the gulches and the wetlands and everything related has a lot of positive impacts. So yeah, that's my testimony. Mahalo.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Seeing none. Thank you for your testimony. And just a note for everybody who is talking about the maps, those are all in section 3. And tonight we're just slated to go over sections 1 and 2. So 3 will be for a future meeting. Okay, up next online, we have Rob Weltman, and then we are switching back into the gallery, and then we will head back online. Go ahead.
Zina mai na lalo e ke kumiki na ho lalo o Maui. O le Pakawatman ko inoa o kapo'o pa o ke kumiki o lalo ko lalo a o kaiolo no ko papa o lala no Maui ama. He mana o ke kahi ko o no ke kule kele helu elua i wakalua kuma 5 o ko papa o lala no Maui ama. My name is Rob Weltman, and I'm the chair of the South Maui Community Plan Advisory Committee. First, I'd like to clarify a comment at the start of this meeting. The references to West Maui were removed from the South Maui Community Plan in the very first meeting of the CPAC almost 2 years ago. So I strongly urge you to reference the plan adopted by the CPAC and not the very old draft, 2-year-old draft from the planning department. But mainly, I'd like to very briefly address the issue raised in almost all the written testimony today on policy 2.2.25. Almost all that testimony includes one or both of the following quotes. Quote, the assumption made in 2.2.25 that the Hale Kai Okihe building cannot be utilized for long-term residential purposes is incorrect. And the other one is, quote, retract the Maui Community Plan February 2024 version of section 2.2.25 as it is unconstitutional as stated. The counties cannot pass a zoning law or amend the zoning law that takes away use that was previously allowed. The testimony is correct in that a policy of the community plan should not specify a zoning change. The land use designations, and they're in section 3, not section 2, assign community plan uses but not zoning. Zoning is not part of the charter of a community plan, and it would also be inappropriate for the community plan to propose changing the zoning of Hale Kai Okihe for that reason, even in action, which would be the place it would occur if it was to occur and not in a policy. However, policy 2.2.25 does not mention Hale Kai Okihe, and it does not mention zoning either. It provides a general aspirational guidance to devote more residential housing to our Maui residents than to visitors. The entire text of policy 2.2-25 is, quote, increase the inventory of long-term housing units, whether owner-occupied or long-term rental, and whether single-family or multifamily, by phasing out and converting existing vacation rentals to long-term occupancy. That's a goal. It doesn't say how to do it, when to do it, or anything like that. Mahalo.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Dicos.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Weltman. Can you reference the rule or law that prevents, sorry, you said it's illegal to reduce use, and you referenced state law, or?
That was from, that was not from me. That was from much of the testimony. And it's not something that's dealt with with the community plan anyway. So it would not be something that is relevant for us to determine, or for you to determine in terms of the community plan. You could, of course, discuss it separately as a zoning issue.
Okay, thank you.
It's just not on the table.
Okay, any other questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
And now we'll go in person and then back online. So first in person is Zandra Amaral, followed by Catherine Trotsuk.
Aloha, ai ko mau aloha. Zandra Amaral Kraus ko inoa. E hanau au o Iau Valley E territory o Hawaii. What I've told you in my native tongue is that my name is Zandra Amaral Kraus, and I was born in the territory of Hawaii in Iau Valley, where most of my family still reside. If we want to say how many years, well, I've been a part of this community and the Punani Hospital since 1952 and still here. My family's genealogy goes back over 250 years right here on Maui. So I've grown up and I've seen the changes. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for the job you did today and continue to do, and for the CPAC, everyone that showed up every night. Regarding the points that were brought up, just for clarification, regarding short-term rentals, and I know we're not there yet, but I'd like to. It's difficult to watch my employees who live and work in Lahaina, who are still at our hotel because they don't have a place to go home to. Long-term, full-time housing is important, but I am concerned with the litigation of where we might end up as citizens and being charged with taking away rights from individuals who already invested. The individual that testified about his land being assigned into wetlands, I testify against that as well. It is wetlands, maybe, but we should have brought that to his attention some 15 years ago. Our short-term rental individuals. I remember as a part of the Board of Realtors, when we sat on this 25 years ago, looking into B&Bs and short-term rentals, there was a need. And now needs change. It's changed from when I was a little girl to today. So maybe if I might humbly suggest to this body, is perhaps we can figure out a way of phasing out and not allowing any more B&Bs and short-term rentals. But for us to pull the rug out of these individuals who have become a part of our community, I do not think is fair. And I don't know if it's legal because I'm not an attorney. I'm a real estate broker and I'm a paralegal. So I don't know. So I humbly ask, as you go, take into consideration, as you have from the very beginning, the work that CPAC put into this plan. To the Director of Planning and her staff, I would like to say thank you. Thank you for reviewing it, making the little adjustments that you need to make in order so that we be in compliance with the laws and be ready to move on. We do need long-term housing, but we need to look at how it's done. 45 years this topic has been spoken about. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Up next is Catherine Tratzek, and then we will go online.
Aloha kako. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm not an owner of a short-term rental. I am a Kihei resident who has many friends with small businesses in the Kihei area. I am coming here really to speak on many of their behalf, as well as my own and from the community. I don't have prepared remarks, so I apologize if I ramble a little bit. But I think that I'm incredibly concerned about the plan as it currently exists, and for it to then move forward to the Planning Commission and to the County Council down the road with the language around 2.25 currently. And I know we're not talking about maps, but also looking at the maps and the yellow that shows the apartment district, but how many of those would be Minatoya? The economic consequences are so significant for the Maui, and particularly South Maui community, that those who can't be here because they're working at their restaurants or their shops or their small businesses of other kinds in my neighborhood are incredibly concerned. South Maui has a great number of, a great amount of money coming in through the short-term rental program. The hotels also, of course, create a lot of revenue through the people staying there, but it's a very different type of visitor to the islands. And these units have, generally speaking, been in operation for 50 years or so, following all of the rules, paying all of these various taxes that have been going up and up every year. And nobody loves paying more taxes, but they have been. And those monies have then been able to help fund so many other programs within Maui. I think that the economic consequences for South Maui in particular, but Maui at large, should this language continue, and should this momentum around, or potential momentum around taking away the rights of people who've been playing by the rules for the last 50 years is a really concerning thing to me. And I just wanted to sort of stand up early enough in the process to ask for you to think very carefully about the language that's included in this document, and where that might go, and how that might impact so many people's businesses, lives, families, and futures. And as everyone else has said, I don't think anyone is against affordable housing. We are all shouting, doing whatever we can to try to help, and to help fund, and to create ways of helping people afford to live here. But I don't see this as a solution. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Seeing none, thanks again. Okay, so we're going online. First to Leilani Pumano and then Kelly King.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, wonderful. My name is Leilani Pomano and I work at Pacific Rimland. I was on the board of the Hawaii Housing Finance Development Corporation for 8 years, with 3 of those years as the chair. And I'm currently on the board of Hawaii Public Housing Authority. And their mission is to provide housing for families earning 60% of average medium income or below. And my testimony is based on my experience as a board member and on the South Maui Community Plan's policies on affordable housing, specifically policies 2.2.18 or 18, 2.219, and 2.221, and 2.227. So in summary, these policies reflect the vision for affordable housing, near work, and urban land uses throughout South Maui, including within high-end projects. This vision should be encouraged but not required, mainly because these policies will add more regulation to our overly regulated land use permitting. You may be aware that the UHERO reported that Hawaii is one of the most regulated states in the nation, and these all add costs to housing, including affordable housing. Policies 2.218 and 2.227 are conflicting in areas of South Maui, namely south of Wailea. And I just would like to know, how does one reconcile these conflicting policies? Policy 2.221 prohibits the use of affordable housing credits. Affordable housing credits are an important source of non-government funding, meaning no taxpayer funding for affordable housing developers. They allow affordable housing developers to reach families with lower AMIs, and these credits can help subsidize housing for gap families earning 80% to 100% or 120% AMI, where again, no government funding has been traditionally been available. Policy 2.221, that same policy requires affordable housing requirements to be satisfied only within South Maui. I suggest deleting this portion of this policy in light of the need for affordable housing in Lahaina, allowing housing developers to provide affordable housing in the area of greatest need. I'm disheartened when regulatory agencies feel they need to provide more affordable housing and translate that into regulations that use sticks instead of carrots. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the commission? Vice Chair Thompson.
Thank you, and thank you for coming today, or at least online. I have the questions about 2.2, 17, 18, and 19. Those all say require to start. Are you recommending that those all be encouraged?
Yep, certainly, Commissioner.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Commissioner Lindsay?
So you were citing 2.2, 18, 19, 21, 27, and 17 now?
Not 17.
Okay.
18, 19, 21, and 27.
Okay, thank you. So not 17, like Commissioner Thompson.
That's correct, but just let me confirm that. Yeah, that's correct. 18, 19, 21, and 27.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Okay. Any other commissioner questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Up next is Kelly King, followed by CJ Elizaris.
Aloha, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I appreciate you guys listening. I'm a little disheartened that this meeting is all about the South Maui Community Plan is not taking place in South Maui, and would like to just reiterate what the testimony that Mary Trotto sent in, that South Maui, I mean, I heard language earlier by the planning director that you want to respect the will of the community and be in alignment, but the community came out clearly and asked you to wait until we have a South Maui member on the planning commission. And so I just wanted to reiterate that first, because I think a lot of us still feel this way. You're going ahead, so we're going to go ahead and make testimony on certain parts of the plan. And so looking at the plan, I wanted to reiterate the importance of what Dick Mayer had been talking about, the fact that we need the infrastructure study, we need the infrastructure cost. This is a legal document and it should be regulatory because this is, look how many hours our community is putting into this plan. And we're doing this to make a better community for the people who live here and the people who work here, not to make a better playground for the developers. And so when I hear people testifying that some of this language like requirement instead of encouragement is going to keep development from happening, that's what it's designed for. It's designed to make sure that we have smart development. We don't have rampant development. We don't have high-end development where we don't need it. And if you want to put language in there saying that this doesn't apply to 100% affordable, many of us in the community would probably be okay with that. What we don't want to see is an 80% high-end housing project slide through, or glide through the process easily, because we don't need more of that in Kihei right now. We need infrastructure and we need affordable housing. Those are our two greatest needs. And we've known, everybody knows that. We've known that for a long time. So please keep that language in there that's meant to be regulatory in the policies. Otherwise, like Johan Law said, the policies don't mean anything. I also wanted to, because I think Albert Perez had to go to another meeting, and I just wanted to clarify something for him about the Fong property. The Fong property already has an SMA permit. What the open space designation does is prevent them from getting an SMA permit amendment that would allow them to add more homes. So, and they're in a known floodway. So, and I just came from a meeting about a month ago with some families who are holding up the north-south collector road because they're afraid the construction is going to add more flooding to that area. They actually built and bought homes in a flood zone. So yes, the flooding is not going to be mitigated completely by this project. It will be mitigated some, and there's more attention on it. But just understand that we have to pay attention to these areas that are wetlands and
3
flood
minutes.
zones, because we're putting people in danger by allowing development in these areas. And again, we're not a playground for developers. Some of us, I've lived here over 40 years in South Maui.
Can you summarize
and
your testimony,
made our
please?
homes here. Thank you. Okay, well, I'll end there, and thank you again for your time. And I hope that you folks got my earlier letter.
Yes, I believe so.
Is that okay?
Any questions from the commission?
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Kealoha.
Follow for your testimony, Mrs. King. At our last meeting, I remember you and other members of the community had asked about the representative from South Maui and the Planning Commission, and we had a pretty extensive discussion about that on the MPC and how to do that, given that we've already started the process. So we have like this, I can't remember. I might turn to the other members of the group, but we have to like complete the review within 90 days. And so how are we going to complete this review in the allotted time that we have when we have no idea when the South Maui representative would be placed onto the commission? And so I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that or any solutions for that, because we kind of just kept hitting a wall.
I do. Thank you, Commissioner, for that question. And I wanted to reiterate what I said in the letter, that I do appreciate you folks. This is the first time we've actually heard language by the Planning Commission that you care about the community, but we're just not seeing the action. So there's frustration, but there's a lot of appreciation for you folks too. First of all, I think it's 180 days that you have to finish this plan. It's 6 months. But the other thing that you have to know is that you also have in the CPAC was afforded extra time. So you also have the ability to ask for extra time if something doesn't get done within that 6-month period. Almost every community plan has had an extension at various levels. Always almost on the CPAC level. Every time since I've been on the council, we've done 3 meetings, and we done 3 community plans. This being the 3rd. The Molokai one, we actually got to after the CPAC had completed, but we brought them back. We brought some of the CPAC members back to testify on some of the issues that were unclear. So if you don't finish within the allotted 180 days, you can, and when it gets close, you can definitely ask for an extension from the council. And I've never seen an extension be denied. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you for asking.
Yep, question from Vice Chair Thompson.
And thank you, Mrs. King, for testifying today. And I just have one question. Can I get your take on 2.2.25? It'll be a hot button.
Can you read that to me? Because it's not in front of me right now. On my
Sure, that's
screen.
the one for the
Sorry,
short term.
It's,
Oh, don't do
it's
that.
not a clarifying question.
Oh, sorry, not a clarifying question. We'll save it for later.
Oh, okay. I'm happy to talk to you about that some other time, Dale.
If she testifies on that item, you can ask her about that item. I do have a follow-up question, just to clarify your comments on the Fong property. So I believe I heard you said that you acknowledge they have an SMA permit and the intent was to prevent them adding additional homes to their project plans? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I'm actually reading directly off of Albert Perez's testimony. So that his testimony says that the SMA permit allows them to go ahead with their original plans. What the open space designation will do is prevent them from getting an SMA amendment that would allow them to add more homes in the known floodway where they're building.
Okay, thank you for your clarification.
Okay, thanks for the question.
Any additional questions from the commission? Seeing none. Okay, thank you for your testimony.
Mahalo.
Okay, next is CJ Elizaris, who was going to be followed by Albert Perez, but who will now be followed by Karen Smart. So CJ, Mr. Elizaris, please go ahead.
Hi, this is CJ. For meeting on this, I do have a solution for getting I think it's a solution for getting a South Maui representative on the Planning Commission. My offer still stands. I think the problem for me is maybe one of the short-term rental owners can spare one of their units, rent it to me. South Maui Community Advisory Group can
Hold
pay
on.
for it.
CJ,
And,
can you restart? You cut out for a little while there.
okay. Restart from the beginning.
After you will offer to be the South Maui Community Plan member, South Maui member.
Oh yeah. But I do not have an address in South Maui. So I was thinking maybe a short-term rental owner can spare me a room. And the South Maui Community Advisory Group, who cares so much about having a South Maui representative be on the commission, can pay for it, and then I can stand up for South Maui and represent that way. So yeah, just that offer still stands from last meeting that I was present. I'd also like to thank Director Kate Blystone for referring to policies versus actions, which helps me to save going through a lot of different numbers here. I was there at the CPAC meetings. I could see how decisions are made and how different community representatives are not politicians, but they tried their best between a broken community. Obviously, with 2.25 being brought up so much today. My problem with the whole section 2.2 is that the title is for safe, healthy, livable community for all. I think we need to rebuild, redo, and fix infrastructure. We already have problems from the past, problems from the last community plan, and I think the plan should be to fix it. I've moved into homes that I had to make good for me and my family to live in, to make it safe, healthy, and livable. I think that needs to be done rather than choosing new development to go after and rebuild. Some of those things are existing waterways, hardscapes, non-native species, both floral and faunal, and traffic. There's a lot of contradicting policies here, and just going back to those big problems from the past, 2.2.10, and I don't know, I got mine from CPAC, wearesouthmaui.org, but the numbers seem to be a little different. But 2.2.10 says pickleball courts. That's just more hard spaces. Everybody's talking about rainfall and water and flooding and runoff. I would not encourage that, rather than use already existing spaces and turn them into pickleball courts if that's how the community is aging. When it goes, I also have 2.2.10 being native trees and flora. Trees are flora, so I think you could take out trees. And I'd like to really stress getting genetics for these plants, having them be place-based. I'll do one example is the Lipocada, either Rockii, Integrifolia, or Succulenta. They're all known as Nehe, but none of them, well, maybe the Rockii, specifically McKennaensis, would survive in South Maui under its current status with the types of rainfall that we get without bringing more water from Wailuku. Sorry, was that 3 minutes?
That was 3 minutes.
Okay, I have like 6 more, but again, thanks, Kate Blystone, Policies versus Actions.
Yeah, so just a note for you, we are probably gonna still be discussing section 2 at our next meeting, just based on the way our time is going. So feel free to submit written testimony and you can put down all of your points and make sure we get them all.
Sweet. Any questions?
Yes, we have a question from Commissioner Lindsay.
Can you highlight the 6 points quickly in just highlight it quickly?
Highlight the 6 points quickly.
Yep. That you have issues with, maybe.
Maybe, do you have like specific policy numbers?
Well, so yeah, I think it's on mine. It says 2.10. It might be, I don't know what your guys ones, but about the native trees. Yeah, just that making sure that it's native trees. I know there's protections for non-native species like Kiave and monkey pods. Maybe remove the non-native species before we bring in the native species in different areas. It seems more gentrification happening when we do that with the plants. There's another one that has, I have it as 212, to include shade trees. My thing about that is not everybody knows how to take care of native trees, and it seems to be a pulse word or whatever it's called nowadays. But there's non-standardized measures for maintenance for native species, especially when we're bringing native species into a dry land area in the Lee. And then for me, it's 2.14 greenways, linear systems don't work and they only contribute to runoff. So mine would be to make these greenways relate to the winds, the waters, the natural lifeways, rather than to existing infrastructure. 2.16 has parks. That's a conflicting or contradicting policy because parks require more water, which require more non-native grasses to take up the spaces. So if you're talking about introducing native species, then why are we talking about more of these open parks? And then native plants and setbacks are to, just prioritize what are the plants that belong in the space, specifically subspecies that belong in South Maui. I think those are a real quick one.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would encourage you to submit that all as written testimony ahead of our next meeting.
I will do that, and I just appreciate you guys and all the reading you guys do. So I'll try to keep my writing short.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We have a question for you from Commissioner Dicos.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your testimony today. Just for clarification, I know that's the second time you applied for the South Maui Commissioner position. If we had the choice, we would take you on right away, but we don't make those decisions, unfortunately. So you may want to talk to the mayor.
Sounds good.
Any other?
Sorry, was that a question? Are you
Yeah.
asking me if I'm going to go talk to the mayor?
No. I just wanted to make, we're not able to make that decision on who becomes the commissioner. So we appreciate your offer, but we can't do much with it. That's all. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Yeah, just a note we're supposed to have this be questions. I know I made comments about testimony, but Anyway, moving on. Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Elizares. I understand that Albert Perez is not online. And so we will go on to Karen Smart, followed by Todd Lynham. Anyway. Oh, Karen, please unmute yourself. And Todd, we will come to you next.
Aloha, my name is Karen Smart. I was going to retract my testimony, but I'll try to make it quick because it's probably more for the June 25th. It's about the zoning, and I just wanted to put a little light on locals that do own STRs and how it's going to affect us as well, the ones that live here and own a vacation rental. I know there's a lot of other stories like mine, and I put my entire savings, my 401k, everything into that vacation rental, and I can't afford to live there myself. And if they do change the zoning, I'm going to have to figure out a way to live. Right now, I live in a converted garage. So I don't have that kind of money. So just so you could keep these things in mind, that there are people that are not rich that have these vacation rentals that I was going to be my retirement. And then I went through the pandemic, I went through the fires, and now this. And I somehow made it through the other two, but this is going to do me in. So just letting you know another perspective if you haven't heard about it. Or you know, I've heard other people talking about that too. And my place is by the Maui coast, which is a hotel, and Pacific Shores. They both bedrooms do not have closets. It's not conducive really to family environment. So to say that would be affordable housing just seems not right. Maybe if you when you're thinking about zoning. And also, I did offer that unit to Lahaina victims, and they don't want Kihei, they want Lahaina. So to take it away, I don't know who it's going to be for, and it's not going to be an affordable house. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I know we're all talking about numbers and things, but I wanted to also throw that out so that you know that there's those things that we're going through as well.
Sure. Thank you for your testimony. I would encourage you to testify on June 25th because that is when we'll actually be discussing the short-term rental bill.
Right. This is about the zoning too. If you know, just we're right next to the Maui coast, and this is about zoning changes as well. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you. Okay, up next we have Todd Lynham, followed by Eric Robinson, and then we're back in the gallery here.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate everyone's time and your time. My story is shorter. You know, we moved to Maui in 2017. We got like Carrie mentioned, our unit is also at Pacific Shores, and you know we lived there. It was actually listed for a year for $375, and you know presumably you know cheaper as time goes further back, and now you know it's like close to like $1 million, and so it's which is great for you know tax revenue. It just shows to show like the you know the pressure on housing and needing that, and I'm just trying to learn so much, and I really appreciate all the documentation. Like I get so excited when I you know read the plans about you know the infrastructure and you know and the possibilities, and I get really excited about that, and trying to read back about you know previous you know housing initiatives and things like this, and I've just been you know in study mode. Yeah, and so that you know we ended up moving to Oahu for a job, and so you know we can definitely appreciate you know the cost of living and all the pressures around this. And I just also wanted to you know mention about when so now we do a short-term rental, and you know our partner, her name is Jennifer, and she runs a business that manages, she has cleaners. She's our online contact. She, would be very impacted by this, as she's mentioned, and people, others, like our handyman, and yeah, and that's all I wanted to share, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commission? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next is Eric Robinson, and then we will come back into the gallery.
Good afternoon, Chair Thayer, Vice Chair Thompson, and Commissioners. My name is Eric Robinson. I'm an attorney. My law firm and I are legal counsel to several individuals, businesses, and resorts that are impacted by the South Maui Community Plan. So I'd like to thank the Commission for the opportunity to testify today, and I offer the following testimony as comments. I've submitted written testimony, and I'm not going to reread that here, but I do want to emphasize a key point. And that point is that across the board requirements, like the current draft plan proposes, they raise significant constitutional and legal concerns. So as the Commission may know, community plans can have the force and effect of law. For instance, when the Commission is determining whether an application for an SMA permit is consistent with the community plan. When you impose requirements without any sort of connection to what that proposed action is, and without considering whether the requirement is proportional to the action, it doesn't pass constitutional muster. So with that in mind, I believe the South Maui Community Plan should encourage as opposed to require its policy goals. And specifically, the following policies from 2.1 and 2.2 require rather than encourage. So that's 2.1.5, 2.1.9, 2.1.12, 2.1.22, 2.1.23, 2.2.17, 2.2.19, 2.2.26, 2.2.27, 2.2.35, 2.2.37, 2.2.40, and 2.2.47. And I've discussed these policy provisions in greater detail in my written testimony, and I would like to add that with respect to policy 2.2.19, the County Department of Housing and Human Concerns written testimony also proposes encouraging rather than requiring that policy. So thank you again for the opportunity to testify, and I'm happy to take any questions the Commission may have.
Thank you. Any questions from the Commission? Seeing none, thanks again for your testimony.
Thank you.
Let's see. In the gallery here, we have Lahala Aiwohi, followed by Cal Chipchase.
Aloha, Director Blystone and Commissioner Thayer and the rest of the commissioners. It's been a while since I've been up here and getting to testify in front of you. But I had a while to sit back here and listening to the other testifiers. And I noticed, the planning department mission. And part of that mission kind of caught my eye that, to help the people of Maui County manage growth, preserve land in an equitable and sustainable manner that balances cultural, environmental, and economic needs. And I think right now, looking at that, we all know that we're in a shortage. We're in a housing inventory shortage. Like we have no homes. And if you look at the planning at what the South Maui CPAC, what the plan is right now, and I forgot my testimony at home, so it gave me some time to actually think about new items that I can testify on. And we had some testifiers prior, including Eric that just testified before me, coming up on some of the items that I was planning to testify on. But if we look at what we have in front of us, you look at just the words that is being used, such as required. And if we continue to put those terms on plans such as the CPAC, the South Maui plan, we will continue to not help the problem that we're facing now. What we'll see is it's not part of a solution. It's going to continue to be a problem, and we won't see any more housing. So I know we had testifiers prior saying that there isn't going to be any impact on any of the housing development or affordable housing, but there is. So I think we need to look at that, look at the terms that are being used, look at those words, because those words lay very heavily on how we move forward through these tough times. So the words requirement or required should be deleted, and it should be replaced with encourage or support. I think that we need to look at the fact that it's not aligned with what we currently have in our county codes as well as in our state laws. So that's just some of the things that I just wanted to say. I know we have attorneys in the back here that will be testifying, like Cal Chip Chase. We did just hear from Eric. And Leilani had a great testimony. So I just wanted to share that with you. And that's mahalo for your time.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next is Cal Chip Chase.
Afternoon, everyone. Cal Chip Chase. I won't cover the policies that I talked about last time, but I will continue with the same theme on the policies that are before the commission today, and that is with the idea of support and encourage versus require or shall. Last time we heard that those words support or encourage aren't really planning language. We shouldn't use them in the plan because they're not really planning language. Instead, we should use require or shall. We heard that again today. With respect, that's not accurate. I went back and I looked at the current plan and I looked at the Maui Island plan, and the current community plan uses the word encourage 24 times, and the island plan uses it 128 times. The current community plan uses support 17 times, and the island plan uses support 237 times. And they use terms like that over and over again for a few reasons. One is that we only revisit these plans every once in a while. However often they're supposed to be, we really get to them every 20 or even 30 years almost. And when you're looking at a plan that is not substantially changed over such a long period of time, you're not really talking about the community as it exists through the course of that plan. You're talking about a snapshot of the folks who are able to take time away from work and family to show up and testify or to serve on boards and commissions. And so we need to be general enough to accommodate the rest of the community today and over time. The other reason that plans tend to use those broader languages is that they're part of a funnel, really, of planning, from the very general island plan to the less general, more specific community plan to very specific zoning, and then regulations that address specific areas like the shoreline or like subdivision that are quite mandatory and very, very specific. Using general language respects that funnel. I have written testimony. It didn't make it in by email. I will pass it out, but I wanted to focus on just a couple of policies that kind of make those points. The first is if you look at 2.3.1, that policy mandates following SLREXA, the sea level rise exposure area. Well, this commission spent years not adopting SLREXA, but adopting the erosion hazard line as the shoreline setback. So this mandatory language in 231 puts us in conflict right away because SLREXA is different than the erosion hazard line. So all the work that this commission did to craft careful rules is called into question. Another one is 2.3.21, which says that all projects, including 201H, so at least 51% affordable projects, have to be able to connect to R1 water if available, and even if not available, have to develop the connections for it in case it becomes available. What will that do potentially to affordable projects if we impose one more requirement on them? I see my time is up. If I have one more sentence, I'll wrap up. Thank you, Chair. Rather than mandate language like that we have to make these connections available even on 296, 201H, and 297 projects, encourage it so that if a particular project doesn't make sense for that connection because it won't be available anytime in the foreseeable future, or because it's the cost that breaks the back of that project, you can make the decision, the other boards and commissions can make the decision not to require that. We would rather, I hope, have the affordable project than not have an affordable project and the goal of connecting to R1 water for every single affordable project. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Dicos, followed by Commissioner Kealoha.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chase, for your testimony. The question between referring to required and encourage, could it not be flipped as well? So if you had required, could the commission, if there was a good argument why that requirement could not be met, the commission could make an adjustment? Could it not apply both ways?
Probably not, Commissioner. Probably not, because again, where the plan comes in, the community plan is in change of zoning, SMA, and subdivision. You guys see change in zoning as recommenders and SMA as decision makers. You can't deviate really from mandatory language in a community plan. If it's a goal, a policy, an idea, something that we strive for, you can decide on an individual basis whether it's appropriate or meets it in that instance. And maybe there's a good reason not to. But if it's mandatory, I fear you're going to face arguments like we see in many cases that you're not able to make those changes, even when those changes make sense.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Kealoha? Oh, we cannot hear you.
Sorry. Mahalo for your testimony. Can you say again what you said about Slerexa and the EHL not being contradictory? Because I was under the impression that they're both 3.2.
Absolutely. So 3.2 refers to the anticipated sea level rise, of course, and that is consistent. Slerexa is a broader measurement that takes into account not just the erosion hazard line, but other conditions such as passive flooding. This commission, through extensive hearings lasting years and years in a working group, opted to adopt the 3.2 erosion hazard line rather than Slerexa. So Slerexa as a policy might be a goal or something to shoot for or try for or consider. I'm not arguing against that. But as a mandatory requirement, it appears to me to be in conflict with the commission's rules in 3.2 that we assume will be signed at some point and put into law because it considers factors other than erosion.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let's see. So we will move back online. I think our last testifier to sign up at this point is Tom Crowley.
Aloha Commission, Tom Crowley testifying on my own behalf.
Thank you.
I'll wait till Mr. Chip Chase finishes handing out his testimony.
Okay, 1 second.
Yep.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you. I would like the commission, when they're evaluating each of these policy statements, to consider whether the policy statement is indeed an appropriate policy statement or whether it is a change in code and kind of like a backdoor change in code. When we change our county code, it goes through review of many different agencies for what that change might affect. And it's a much more in-depth public process than this is right here. I'll give you an example of that. 2.227 prohibit new transient units and require the developer blah, blah, blah. If someone has a property in hotel zoning, this would basically say, we're taking away your right to use your property in a permitted way that it's allowed to be used. This is an inappropriate thing to be in the community plan. So you have to take that out, period. There were a lot of other things that were in the policy that say require this, require that. Now, if these requirements are easily done and so forth, then maybe they're appropriate for this. But if they then change the code and the use that the person's able to make of the property, then this isn't the place for those requirements to be. It should be then encourage the council to come up with changes in code that would achieve this or that, whatever you're asking for there. So again, as you go through these, I just ask that you consider each one. Are we truly setting a policy here, or are we making an end around to code? Moving on to a different issue, which is the one you're going to hear so much about in a month, and you've already heard a lot about already, 2.226, where is that the one? No, 2.225, the one where they're saying convert the legally allowed vacation rental uses to something other than that. The comment I want to make on that is I think we're missing where we're losing housing. It's not to these properties that were enabled to make short-term rental uses 40 years ago or more. It's to all the new properties that have been built since 1991. In 1991, anything that you've built in the apartment district, specifically in code, says residential buildings and structures in the apartment district must be occupied on a long-term residential basis, except for the other uses that are allowed in code. So let's be clear about that. Every time someone builds a new building in an apartment district, it's supposed to be occupied long-term, and that's defined in code as more than 180 days a year. However, more than half of the properties that have been built since 1991 in the apartment district are being used as second homes. So there's where you really need to be taking a closer look at where is our housing going. It's going to second homes that are not used for vacation rental. And I do have some numbers I could share with you, but I see that I'm at the end of my 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair?
Thank you. Would you be so kind to share those with us?
Thank you. Thank you. The non-owner occupied properties listed in the tax records in South Maui, 3,821. Now, not every one of those non-owner occupied is necessarily a second home. Some are long-term rentals that people have not gone through the extra step of applying for a long-term rental exemption for, but a good portion of them I know are strictly second homes. 5,130 are owner-occupied properties, 947 are long-term rentals, and 6,426 properties are STR TVR. So that is the current state of South Maui's resident and transient housing. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I know we can always count on you for those numbers.
Yes.
Commissioner Dicos, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Crowley, for your testimony. Can you help me understand, you were talking about prior to 1991, the housing was required to have long-term tenants, and then after 1991, the rules changed and the use could be short-term, or can you clarify?
Okay, thank you for asking for that clarification. No, prior to 1989 and in some cases 1991, there in the apartment district throughout Maui, you were allowed to, and in fact it was specifically in code, that's where short-term rental uses are supposed to be taking place. Then the law changed and said, you can no longer make those uses in those districts except for the uses that have already started. And after that, everything built after that in the apartment district should be, as listed in code, specifically for long-term residential use and not for second home use and not for short-term vacation rental use. But the short-term vacation rentals that are being proposed for phase out right now, again, not through you guys at this moment, but supported by this policy, are those that were entitled prior to 1991.
Okay, that was helpful. And then did you throw out a number of after 1991? How many?
No, unfortunately, I don't have that breakdown of each of those properties. But what I did was I went to a number of the properties that I was aware were built after 1991, and then I sorted the how many units in there are owner occupied versus a non-owner occupied. And in every case, every single case where I took a look at properties developed in the apartment district, it was more than 50% were non-owner occupied, meaning that the owner doesn't live there and they're not renting it out long-term.
Okay, always a wealth of information. Thank you, Mr. Crowley.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Crowley, if you could come back, I would like to double check one of the numbers you provide.
Sure.
The short-term rental, transient vacation rental number?
6,426. Now, keep in mind that that includes, that's all of South Maui, and that includes both those in the hotel district as well as those that would be in the apartment district, as well as the approximately 40, or it's less than that, like 36 short-term rental homes that hold permits.
Okay, and this is data from
from
what?
the real property tax program that they gave a presentation to the council on when they were going through the budget this year. And if you'd like, I can submit a link to that so that you folks can access that information as well.
Yes, please do.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, that's all our questions. Thank you, Mr. Crowley. Let's see. Up next, signed up to testify is Will Spence, here in person.
Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Will Spence. I wasn't planning on doing this, but I'm reading and listening to the testimony and thought I'd chime in on this. I am testifying on my own behalf, not in representation for anybody, but also as a former administrator, as a former planning director. I look at some of these things and I go, how the heck are they going to be implemented? When I read the words require, what this is saying for the life of the plan, for the next 20 years, there will never be an instance where you would want to vary from require. So when you say require certain things for affordable housing projects, like this, the 2.218 says require affordable housing process to be near job centers, transit services, etc. One, I don't know what near means. That's a really subjective term. Near to me, nearest to my closest post office is 5 miles away. But to require that, you're saying you can never approve an affordable housing project that is maybe too far in some people's minds. Even if it benefits the lower, AMI groups, we could not approve this because it's too far. So I like the term encourage better instead of require throughout. I'll tell you as a consultant and also having sat in Kate's chair for many, many SMA permits, when you have something that says encourage, the commission is going to be on that applicant and say, okay, well, I read this. I said, it says here, encourage to be close to schools. Tell me how you're close. So it's still, the language, the policies still hold the developer's feet to the fire. It's just like Cal was talking about, if you say require, it's mandatory. You can't give an exception to that. So there's going to be times in the next 20 years, the commissions after you is going to want to see exceptions. So I would encourage you to say encourage. The other ones, I always find, I think it was Tom Crowley said, people trying to do end runs around the law. I wouldn't term it that way, but when you have policies that come up are contrary or direct conflict with the law, really the law should be changed. So when it says 2.21, credit shall not be used. That's contrary to the law. Those things, that requires an amendment to the code by the county council. So if you want to say, go revise this, that's one thing. But to try to create law through the community plan, that's something else.
Can you summarize, please? You hit your 3 minutes.
Okay. Can I finish up to just one thing?
One sentence. Somebody might ask you to continue.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm done.
Thank you. Vice Chair.
Now we're through. Now, actually, I do have a question on this to kind of clarify. Does this document increase our housing, improve our housing, or make it worse as it's written?
It makes it harder.
Harder to achieve our goals of
It
housing.
makes it harder for anybody to come here and say, the way it's written now, it makes it harder to come here and get a project approved.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, can you fill us in on your last?
Okay, I see an apparent conflict here. 2.2.27, it says prohibit new transient units. The following page, 2.2.40, require new hotels and expansion of existing hotels to be water neutral. If you're prohibiting new units, there's no way you can expand anyway. So I don't know how to resolve that. Maybe staff knows what that discussion was, but thank you, commissioners.
So hold on. Commissioner Dicos?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Spence, for your testimony. So I'm struggling a bit with the encouraged. So as a commissioner, when we have applicants come before us, do I ask, did the planning department encourage you to do smart streets? And they say, yes, they did. Okay. Like, how do we would really like you to do that. How do you get around that?
I'll tell you, as someone who's drafted a number of SMA permit applications and sat and listened through, I counted one time, it was like 300 or 400 planning commission meetings. Applicants always look through the community plan. You're required to look at the community plan, and you are required to address the policies in the plan. So if it says encourage whatever green facilities, green infrastructure, by following this plan, you have to address that in your application. And if you don't, there will always be a commissioner and says, Mr. Spence, what about this? And then you have to go ahead and address that. So there's no getting away, there's no skirting around those kinds of issues.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions from the commission? Seeing none, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I believe that is everyone who has signed up to testify. Okay, yep. State your name for the record.
Aloha, members. Dave Good here. A lot of great testimony. And you're not going to be required to do anything I say, but I'm going to encourage you. But I went to every community plan except for a meeting that they had in Kihei, except for maybe 3. And then another fellow from our office went. And they did a lot of great work. Obviously, what before is a pretty comprehensive document, but there's a few holes. One is they never really had Corp Counsel at their meetings. They begged to have Corp Counsel there. Corp Counsel came a couple times near the end, and every time they did, they seemed to go in executive session, and they came out and they changed things. So I really encourage you to use your Corp Counsel, who should be at the meeting. I haven't seen who's online. Also, they didn't have time to reconcile these conflicts in their policy. So whether they had internal policy conflicts, some of the ones that have been mentioned today, or it conflicted with law, they just didn't have the time to do that. So as it goes from the Community Plan Advisory Committee to the Planning Commission to the Council, you guys have a role, right? And I think you have a unique perspective. One, you look at SMAs. We had one earlier today, right? So you see where you have to be consistent with the community plan. So that's why, since you have that power for SMAs and recommending power on zoning, you see where that community plan comes into play and why the wording is important. You also have legal counsel here, and also recommend that you ask respective departments of the subject matter to be available to come and talk and ask questions. So I had submitted testimony previously on conflicts with workforce housing, and to answer Commissioner Thompson's question, if you were to ask it, this makes it harder. Doesn't make it easier. And I submitted some testimony for you folks that outlined specifically Ramsey, here's how you can change that and why. I'm going to hand out some others today. It's more about water and stormwater. So whether you get to that today, I don't know, but so I'm not going to belabor those points. But again, what I'm trying to get at is better language, consistency, applicability, and enforceability for you folks down the road. That's my goal. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Dicos?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Good, for your testimony. So you say it's not good for housing. I think somebody pointed out the mission that's on the wall over there, which is also, I gotta read it, preserve land, equitable and sustainable manner that balances cultural, environmental, and economic needs. Do you think it assists with some of the other planning department missions?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I mean, it's a balancing act.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Good. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you for your testimony.
Welcome.
Let's see, is there anyone else in person who wishes to testify? Somebody online? Oh, Albert Perez.
Hi.
Hold on 1 second. We're getting something handed out to us.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Perez, go ahead.
Hi, sorry, I tried to tell people that I had to drop off and now I'm back. But anyway, yeah, I wanted to just encourage everybody, you know, the South Maui Community Plan Advisory Committee spent months crafting the draft that the community plan that you see before you. Each of the policies that you see was considered and voted upon by people who live in, and yes, they care about South Maui. So I urge you to respect their mana'o and their hard work and refrain from making substantive changes to the plan. I wanted to offer a clarification on the Fong property that someone testified about. The developer has been advertising that project saying that there were 81 lots, but their existing SMA permit is only for 54, and they have yet to gain other key county approvals. So it's not really a fully vested project. Any changes that they're proposing, like going for 81 lots like they want to, would trigger the need for a new SMA permit, a new public hearing, and other requirements. So just to clarify on that one. And then getting back to the required versus encouraged debate, several developer attorneys have submitted written testimony to you asking that you change require to weak, unenforceable language like encourage. And this is because they want to be able to get around policy language by saying, well, you know, it's not required, it's just encouraged. So we're going to approve this. This is what's been happening for decades, and we see the result, especially in South Maui. The court cases that are cited by the developer attorneys are what they fear most. If there's enforceable language, they will have to comply with it. So please respect the will of this South Maui community, that the community plan have actual teeth. Otherwise, it'll just all be nice words, a waste of paper, and the community members who put all their time in, including you folks, will have wasted their time. Please do not contribute to the undermining of people's trust in government. Please keep the community plan strong with enforceable language. Mahalo.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Perez. I believe now that is everyone who has signed up to testify. If there's anybody in person who wants to testify, please step forward. Anyone online can unmute yourself. Otherwise, we will close public testimony. So going once, going twice, 3 times. Public testimony is now closed. Okay. Oh, I think we don't need this anymore. Commissioners, do we need a 5-minute break? Yes. Okay. I'm seeing nodding. Okay, let us take a 5-minute recess and we'll return at 5:05.
I don't know if I support that.
Okay, let us reconvene. Everybody ready? Okay, so do we start recording again?
Yeah.
Oh, we're good. Okay, thank you. Welcome back, everybody. So public testimony is now closed and we can move on with our agenda items. But since we had all this testimony, I'd like to give commissioners a chance to ask any clarifying questions if you have any of the departments based on the testimony received. Otherwise, we can go ahead. Commissioner Lindsay,
Is Corp Counsel around?
we can call Corp Counsel, yes. One second. We have him on call.
Okay, second question.
Yes.
Um,
Oh, into the mic, please.
the last meeting, they said they were gonna post the financials the next day. Did that happen? Where was it posted to?
It's Appendix H is posted on the We Are South Maui website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any? Oh. Commissioner Kiloha, are you still there? Okay, just making sure. We have a quorum of 5 today. So we're working on getting Mr. Hopper on. Does anybody else have clarifying questions for the department in the meantime? Or we can start with our going back through the plan itself, unless you need your question answered before we go forward.
My question was just about require versus encourage, and if he has anything that he can suggest, any, because he will be defending this, or they.
We have to wait for him.
Okay.
Back.
Okay.
I guess until we get to one of those words.
Yeah, so we didn't technically finish section 1, which does not yet have any of those policy statements.
Chair.
Yes.
May I also suggest, I think that if we can't get Mr. Hopper on, that it might be worth us just asking for a memo from him or something that clarifies his perspective on this so that you guys can refer to that. On the subject of using require versus encourage.
Yeah, that would do. That'll do also. Anyone from Corp Counsel, at any.
Do we need a motion to do that, or can we just go ahead, ask him to do that?
I think we can just ask him to do
Okay.
that. And since he's not here to tell me it's wrong, we'll just go that way.
Okay. Commissioner Dicos.
I had similar questions along those lines,
Sure.
even with the, and the maybe, I think it's for Corp, I don't know, maybe it's just for planning in general, but this whole idea of encourage, I'm struggling with that, and I'm just wondering, is that, what is the weight in any of this when it's encouraged? I think one of the testifiers said it's now, if encourage is in there, then they're at least required to address it. So they could dismiss it, but they'd have to substantiate why they're dismissing the encouragement. I'm not sure what to do with I mean, we, and as commissioners, when we provide conditions and we say, be nice if you threw a solar panel up there. I mean, I feel it kind of pointless. Like, okay, yeah, we'll make an effort to do that. But if they don't, it doesn't matter. So the whole encouragement is a struggle.
So I really quickly, I pulled up the West Maui Community Plan because I wanted to think about this. This question certainly came up during West Maui and throughout the course of my career, and I've done long range planning the entire most of it. There are reasons to use encourage and there are reasons to use require. And these plans are regulatory and they're aspirational and they live in this funky gray area. And it really is up to the commission at this point what you want to forward on to council. And it'll be up to the council to decide whether or not they want to use the words encourage or require. Required there's I'm looking at two right now. So in the West Maui Community Plan, require new buildings that will serve as emergency shelters to be built to hurricane standards, et cetera, et cetera. And the next one is encourage the development of fire breaks and bioswales. So you can use encourage, you can use require. It's up to you. I mean, it really is up to you guys how you want to, and that ultimately the council, how they choose to express this. There are legal ramifications for using those words. They mean different things. So just be mindful of that as you're going through this plan. That would be my recommendation. I'm not an attorney though, I'm a planner, which is why I think it would be helpful to have an attorney like the one that just texted me. See if he can join us in 1 minute, which is what he said he would do. To opine on this subject, because we look at things differently. Certainly as a planner, not in this jurisdiction, I have recommended denial of a project based on something that was written in a long range plan such as this with the word require or with a word that was specific like that. I will say that it is much more common to see things like encourage because it is a document that is meant to express a vision. And I do resonate with the things that were said regarding, that this plan is supposed to stand for 10 years and things change. And what if those things change? Things that feel like they're evergreen right now aren't evergreen. So, I'm not going to be able to be your oracle that says you shall or should do this. I think it's really going to be up to you. And for those things that you feel need the word require, that's the word. And if it's encourage, then it's encourage. There will be in our proposals, I suspect, some suggestions for softening simply because of the conflict between code and in this plan. That does not mean just because it says, if we say encourage in this plan for something like affordable housing and the code says something slightly different, encourage is certainly softer, but it is moving in the direction that the community wants to move, if that makes sense. So I can stop talking now.
And
Hopper has joined us.
Okay, and as a planner reviewing and comparing it to the community plan, if it's not in there, if you say, well, encourage is useless and it's not even in there, versus, well, there is a policy in there that encourages this, how does that affect your evaluation of the application?
I would go back to something one of the testifiers says, and I'm not sure that I can't remember exactly who said it, but the applicants do review the community plan. And when they see something like that says encourage whatever, they go, oh, we can do this. And then they put it in the thing. So it's more on the front end. And it also supports, so you've seen in your staff reports, it also supports we will call out specific policies that say, X is encouraged. Encouraged to develop of fire breaks and bioswales, for example. If your project has that, it would make sense to call that out and say, hey, this is encouraged. So that's kind of how the word encourage plays. It's not, I disagree with the testifier that it makes the policy useless. I don't believe that's accurate. And Hopper is available if you have questions for him.
Commissioner Lindsay.
Since you are here as a planner, the enforcement, because then we move from enforcing from where we are to enforcing whatever policy is here in require and encourage. So if you're saying if we choose the word require, then once you see it and they have it or don't have it, then that's automatic no. Right?
So I do not love hypotheticals. It makes me, as a planner and as a person, just makes me a little crazy. But like I would say, like, if you know you're required to have a certain thing and you don't have that certain thing, it is a requirement. So like, if that makes sense. I don't think it's automatic no. It just means that maybe your conditions now say that you have to add this thing to your project, right? So there are myriad ways to get at that requirement component. And even with encourage, if you said encourage and encourage a certain thing, and planning commission looked at that and for a project and said, well, it says in the plan that we should encourage this, we're going to add it as a condition. You certainly can do that, right? Like, so things like that. So this is, you know, it's not math. That's not what we're doing here. This is softer science.
Do you want to ask
Hopper.
Mr. Hopper?
Do I just
Go ahead. Mr. Hopper, we have questions for you.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great.
There's been lots of testimony today and the last meeting around require and encourage wording using the words require versus encourage. Do you have any preference or guidance for us in choosing those words? There was support and opposition, a lot of it.
Well, to me, it really does come down to the actual goal, objective, or policy you're talking about and how it's going to apply. The plan itself will have direct legal applicability in only certain cases where you're looking at discretionary permits, such as SMA permits, subdivisions, changes in zoning, things like that. It would not apply in cases where there's ministerial permits, sort of things like building permits and things like that. So I think that's one of the misconceptions you have over the community plan is that it's not mandatory in all cases. It's supposed to set policy for the county, and a lot of times you will need an ordinance to follow up to implement one of those policies if it's going to be mandatory. So like if you want something to apply every time someone applies for a building permit, putting it in the plan is not necessarily going to do that, even if you do say require. So, and for example, if you say require and it's something dealing with a state's jurisdiction or federal jurisdiction, that might not also have the effect. But certainly, and I think common sense would say require is mandatory, require would be more mandatory, and encourage is not as mandatory in those cases. But again, it really depends on the policy. The community plan has the force and effect of law only in cases of discretionary permits like SMA permits, and so I'd leave it at that as far as the general advice. The more specific advice would really have to depend on the goal, objective, or policy. But yeah, saying require would certainly be more mandatory than it would be. Now, you talking about enforcement? Generally, you wouldn't have enforcement actions through the community plan. The community plan would be used to decide whether to grant or deny a permit, or to change the zoning of a property, or to approve other applications. Enforcement would generally be through ordinances. And so that's I think where I can leave you with that general advice. But if you're looking at specific wording for policies, we can certainly I can go over specific policies and and see what the intent of the commission is.
Thank you. Did that help?
Is that clarifying? Commissioner Dicos, do you need any follow-up? Good?
Another question.
Yes.
Corp Counsel. So one of the testifiers today brought up that there's potential cross-checks and conflicts within the plan in itself, and even possibly not our jurisdiction, like state or federal guidelines. Is that something Corp Counsel will be checking, or are we doing that today?
I mean, we can certainly look at that. I would say you should not have internal conflicts like that. So if something's raised, we can certainly look at it. If something's outside of your jurisdiction, you know, you can maybe set a policy to see what you would like to have done on it. But you know, if you're saying something that's in federal jurisdiction, you wouldn't necessarily be able to dictate that in the plan in those cases. But again, a lot of it's, you know, condition dependent of like what exactly you're talking about. But yeah, I think generally speaking, you would want to resolve those conflicts. That makes sense.
Okay, so one of the ones that was cited today was 2.2, 2.2.27 and 2.2.40. Which the first one is regarding prohibiting new units, and then the second one is for hotels. And then the second one is referring to hotels being water neutral. They suggested in testimony that those two were in conflict. I think there was another one that was cited today. But in an effort to, like, I don't feel like the testifiers should be checking this work for us and citing those situations, and I am not credible to do this either. Do you have plans to look at this and check those, like, jurisdiction and conflicts? Is that something Corp Counsel does?
I mean, if it's brought to our attention, yeah. I mean, we'll work through this with the department if there are questions. But I mean, this is another 6-month review period where you'll have a recommendation, and then it'll go to the county council, and they'll have another year to look over this. So if you identify any potential conflicts, please raise them, and we can review them.
Okay. So every point we need to, every time we think there is a conflict, then we ask each individual point to Corp Counsel. Is that what I heard?
I would raise it to the department at this point. I mean, if you're talking about as you go through, you see problems in the plan or those issues, go ahead and raise them, and maybe there's an explanation for them. The department who, you know, worked on the plan presumably has reasoning behind those policies, or if they were added by CPAC, presumably have the reasoning behind that as well. But again, this is an ongoing process. So as new ones come up, I think it is a good idea to check that. But if you've got, I mean, one of the reasons you have over essentially a 2-year review process of this plan is to have issues like that raised, embedded in the discussion. So I think that's one of the reasons that you're having this discussion.
Okay, thank you. That's it for now.
Commissioner Dicos?
Thank you, Chair. I had a question, Corp Counsel, about loss of use. There was a lot of discussion. There's one policy just referencing the phase out of existing vacation rentals to long-term, and there was some, I think there's some talk, well, this gets further in the plan, but there's maps of watershed areas, and I think there's potential conflict with development in those areas. Can you just talk a bit about the legalities of a loss of use?
Again, that's a very general question. Generally, if you have the legal ability to do a use, you can continue to do that use for a period of time, but it's all context dependent. There's a state law that says that the counties can amortize or phase out uses over a period of time over a reasonable period of time in certain areas. But again, it's going to be context dependent. For the vacation rental issue, that's something that the state legislature is reviewing, as well as the county. So I know that that's potential legislation that you would see. To apply broader than just South Maui would need to be through a zoning ordinance. So, but yeah, in general, uses, if they're phased out, you would generally have the right to continue to do that use. If we're talking about loss of use, again, there are several different things raised here in different contexts. So we need to look at the specific case. But you know, if you're talking about an open space designation, that could be something very different, because what uses does that give you after that? And we really have to examine that versus going from short-term to long-term rentals. But if you got specifics there of specific items, raise them and I can take a look at them for you and advise.
Okay, that was helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Everyone all good? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hopper. Appreciate your guidance.
Thank you very much.
Yep. So now, shall we go back into section 1? Because I believe we did not finish that. So we had asked the department for some, or we had talked about some revisions to be made. Commissioner Dicos provided, thank you for your time on that, some suggested language. Which I believe was sent to us by email. We can go through in order, page order, but does anybody else have anything else to bring up or comments on Commissioner Dicos' language? Commissioner Dicos, you want to speak to what you wrote?
Yeah, I just felt bad. They were given so much extra work. So I just threw a few paragraphs together to guide that. It wasn't like this, a cut and paste. It was, here's some language that would assist in defining the role of freshwater and the marine environment. So I'm not asking that get cut and pasted, but it was just some language for referral.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any discussion on this? Shall we see if the department can incorporate it? Yes. Director?
I just would like to make a suggestion. I think that we can incorporate this. I'm not sure if there was a vision for where in the document it goes, what specific section. So that would be direction that we'd be seeking from you all. The only thing I will mention is that we have typically inverted. So where they use a Hawaiian word, we use the Hawaiian word, and then we parenthesize the English version. That would be a recommendation we would probably, just to continue the flow.
Yep.
And elevate Aloha Hawaii.
Perfect. Appreciate that.
But do you have a suggestion for where in the document you'd like it? What section for it to go to? And I don't know if Karen has some.
Yes, please.
The last meeting, they had determined which section that was going in.
Oh, okay.
And I do have draft language for the other suggestions you made, but it's just drafted. And so it has not been incorporated. And that's why I don't have it in front of you right now.
Okay.
I'd had a couple questions though.
Sure.
Like I would like how you would like the sandalwood removal addressed, because that would be mostly an upcountry. I understand that it has impacts in Maui, in South Maui. But that's why it wasn't included in the plan, is because it's more of an upcountry specific activity despite the flooding concerns being caused by the rain not being captured.
Got it.
Makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. I think you could introduce it in that context, to say that this is something that happened upland, but it's very much contributing to what's happening in the lowland and the state of the lowland areas today.
Okay. If you have a direct source you could share with me, that would be
Sure. Can I work with you outside? Okay, perfect. Commissioner Lindsay?
Regarding that, I would also argue that sandalwood came to lower elevations before the trade happened. So it's possible that it was within South Maui boundaries anyway.
Thank you. Okay, so since our revisions from last time are still being worked on, can we table this until we can get a draft to review?
Sure. It seems like Karen had a few questions based on what was asked of her, not just that one, if I'm not mistaken. And so it would be helpful if we could go through those really quick before you table this section, so that we can get those answers so we can get that drafted. For
Mhm.
you. So Karen, if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead. Ask whatever you need. And thank you for all your work on this.
So that specific section, just I would like a referral of where it should go. And then the source of water came from Central Maui. You wanted to add in the 1979 paragraph where the water source was. I could not actually identify where that project had their water source, and I did go through planning documents to try to identify that. Is what I could identify was that in 1975, 4 developers, and I list the Wailea Development Company, Cebu Real Estate, Hawaiian Investment Company, and A&B Properties agreed to develop water sources in central Maui area for use in the arid South Maui region. In 1979, the Central Maui Source joint venture was completed, delivering Iao and later Waihe'e aquifer groundwater to Kihei and Wailea. Does that serve the point that you were
Yeah.
searching for? Okay.
Mhm. Thank you.
And then for the questions section, I was just going to, you had said that you would either like to rewrite the questions so they were questions and answers, or to just do a preamble with that, just saying the following questions explore some challenges and opportunities exist now. Does that satisfy?
Sure.
And the other ones are where it's taking a little more work, and I will get that back to you. I don't have questions as much as it's just taking
Update.
effort.
Yes. No, thank you. Yes, Director?
Yeah, if I may, just, and again, I apologize for not being here. It is really important to remember the point of this section. And the point of this section is really to set the stage for the rest of the plan. It's often, many plans don't, across the nation and other places that do long range planning, don't include a very robust section here. We do it because Mo'olelo is important to us, right? I think in Hawaii. But it's important to keep in mind that this is not regulatory. So we shouldn't, I want you to focus as much energy as you can on sections 2, 3, and 4 for that reason, because those are the types of things where every day the planners that are sitting in this room and listening online and will be engaging with this plan. So just keep that in mind.
Yes, no, thank you. We talked about that last time, but we're talked about how these sections like set up for a lot of the policies, because some of the policies talk about, like water in central Maui, South Maui not being from South Maui. So giving the story of that there's all these, drainage and watershed issues that are happening now. So to provide the historical context for that. Okay. Yes, Commissioner Lindsay.
One more homework for you. I noticed also the past tense reference to Hawaiians. They did this and they worshipped here, and this was then, and there's still Hawaiians there. So if you can make that current now, because they're still there. So like some koa were used as they are places to observe the ocean and weather conditions. Still, they are still places that are used. And kind of keep that framework in your head because it's there. And also regarding all the fishing information, can you use more Olelo Hawaii in that section? Thank you.
Do you have any specific, it would be helpful just so that we don't have to divine what you're thinking, what specific places we should be using it?
This is on page 10, so it's kind of in the beginning. Koa are coral or kora heads, and often these places because some koa were used as places to observe the ocean. Some koa are used, and they are where places you sight fish and places of spirituality. They are just making that current. That's mostly on page 10. There was a lot of that in page 10.
Commissioner, on,
Sorry.
no, I was actually asking about the other one, more use of Olelo Hawaii and
So it's the
the,
following paragraph.
okay.
Fishing grounds, local i'a, and whatever other kind of fish ponds they have out there. I went through the Olelo Hawaii dictionary and I cited a few, but I'm not sure exactly the ones that are there, especially the major ones that are in the area. What type of local i'a they are, or if they're like mala i'a or some kind of brackish water, and citing those specific type of pond. I also know that, yeah. That's it.
We'll do our best.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional comments from the commission on this background information in section 1? Commissioner Dicos.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think this was extra, but there was some discussion last time about the resident to visitor ratio. We hear a lot of testimony every time about increasing our tourist industry and its importance on jobs and all that. I don't see anything that discusses the balance, why the balance is important and what the ratio was. I think on our meeting earlier today, there was a slide that went up that referenced the is it the general plan that had the ratio of tourists, and there's a reason why they've chose that ratio, but it might put that in context.
Okay, so per your request last time, I wrote, well, policy 4.2.3A in the Maui Island Plan calls for an island-wide visitor population of roughly 33% of the resident population. In South Maui, on average, the visitor population is 90% of the resident population.
Okay. Maybe a sentence about why the ratio is important. But thank you.
Do you think you could suggest such a sentence to her, since it's just one sentence?
I'm not sure. I'd have to go look at how they came up with the ratio and why that became the ratio. My apologies.
Refer to the island plan. Okay. Okay. So that sounds like everybody's provided their comments on this background information. I believe we didn't touch on South Maui tomorrow. South Maui's vision and goals on page 28. Did anybody have comments on these? Commissioner Lindsay?
The Malka to Makai watershed management, I continually get hung up on this because they're receiving lots of water from not their space. And then dealing with lots of water or no water. So I don't know, every time it comes up in this, I'm like, I pause and I don't know how to deal with this because it's segmented. Yeah.
Okay.
That's just a comment.
Sure. Maybe when we go through the policies under that goal, we can hash that out further. That sound good? Okay. So sounds like we can move on to section 2, and yay, all these policies that everybody has commented so much about. So I believe the best way to do this will be one by one in order. And we have lots of written testimony about this, and we've received lots of oral testimony about this as well. So we'll start with 2.1. Anybody have comments on the like preamble sections? Why is this important? How will setting this goal affect our future?
Just a general comment. I noticed a lot of the like the first sentence, transportation is not just roads and cars. If we could like make it the positive, so transportation is more than in you know, kind of go the positive way and not the no, it's you know, I think that would just generally bring light to the plan.
I like that. Speak in the positive. What are we going to do versus what are we not going to do? Yes.
Also, in why is this important? Visitors were kind of not included. I guess the visitors include Keiki and Kupuna on the last sentence, but there are lots of visitors in that area, so they're just not addressed here.
Oh, within
Is
this.
that intentional?
There are places where visitors were addressed and it was not, this was not a place that the South Maui CPAC saw a need to add it.
Chair.
Mm-hmm.
I'd also just like to opine on that a little bit. I think if you create communities that are good for the people that live there, it's also good for the visitors. So I don't think it's necessary to call out the visitors in many cases, unless we're creating something that's just for visitors. So in this particular case, a good transportation system should benefit everyone, not just local families.
Commissioner Digos?
Thank you, Chair. In 2.3 there, you have a definition section, calls out Sorexa and erosion. I'm wondering, do we want a definitions in the preamble here for things like complete streets, greenways?
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's in the glossary.
Chair, we have a glossary at the end. The reason we call it out, we did this in West Maui as well, because they're terms of art and they're used all the time. And we felt like it was really important. And I think this was actually a recommendation of the CPAC. Karen might know. There were 1,000 meetings, so I'm not sure that Karen remembers. But at some point, someone said, we just need to put the definitions in this one. And that's part of the reason why we continued it here, because it's still, while many of us in this room are very comfortable with those terms, erosion hazard line and Slorexa, most people are not. I think I even saw a meme that says saying it loudly doesn't make it any less confusing. So it's one of those that we need to put up here. Since we have a glossary, that's really a good place for those kinds of things to live, for the most part.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious because I saw it in there, but I think we discussed last time they might put a footnote that was discussed at the last meeting. So you don't have to get all the way to the end before you know what a smart complete street is. So you could glance down at the bottom of the page and just get that definition for those key words.
I think we would need the commission's help to figuring out what words that aren't included in the glossary, or if you're intending that on every citation or just the first citation, we'd need some clarity on how you'd want that applied. I would recommend it against it, mostly because it will make the document far more wordy than it needs to be, especially considering everything is in the glossary and people are accustomed to going, hey, let me go look at this at the end. But happy to do it if that is the will of the group.
I think to flesh this out, so he does have a good point that 2.3 and 2.4 both have definitions. Like 2.4 has green infrastructure and low impact development. 2.3 has sea level rise, exposure area, and erosion hazard line. So I guess for consistency to go one way or the other, either include them or just put them all in the glossary.
And I guess, I mean, I think there's only two
And
that would, the complete streets probably, and greenways. I think are the only two, if you were to be consistent, 2.2.
Slerexa is one also.
I just mean for section 2.1, if you were going to do a definition, just to be consistent, I think it would only, for me, it would just be those two.
Can I jump in really quick and add on to that? Sorry.
no, go ahead, Commissioner Kaloha.
Yeah, to that point, I was flipping in the back to look at the glossary for those definitions. If we're going to add definitions to 2.1 and green infrastructure is defined in 2.4, but it's actually used initially in 2.1, then we should define green infrastructure in 2.1 instead of 2.4.
That makes sense.
There. So the reason green infrastructure is in 2.4 is because that's an infrastructure. Resilient, is that not the resilient infrastructure section? And so it's used much more frequently there. So we're sliding down this very excellent slippery slope into just including a bunch of definitions, which is fine. Like if that's the direction the commission wishes to go, keeping in mind too, none of that is regulatory. So it's just for ease of reading the plan. And I'm not sure that the vast majority of people are going to read the plan cover to cover in this particular way. Just, I don't want to burst anyone's bubbles. I know all of us are a little nerdy and love this kind of thing, but not everyone.
How could you not?
Sorry. I'm so sorry. But another option that was suggested is to not have those definitions at all if we wanted to keep it consistent across, and that's also an option, just so you can focus on the place where your input really is important to making the future that this community is trying to create.
Commissioners? Commissioner Dicos?
Thank you, Chair. I do think calling them out, just given the chapter 1 and what we're trying to achieve, it's a very bold vision. And some of these are very, they're pretty important in achieving the vision. So complete streets, if it just sort of blends in with the rest of the text, it packs such, not knowing what complete streets is, you probably gloss over how are you ever going to achieve all those great goals in there. So I do think highlighting some of the key main ones is helpful. But, identifying those and not getting in the weeds and I understand that concern.
So you're suggesting maybe just have complete streets in this section?
I mean, it is unique in that it's capitalized as opposed to like a greenway, which is more of a common name. So I would be fine with just complete streets.
Everybody else? Complete streets as a definition, unless it's like key concepts or something versus definitions.
I'm in support of all the definitions being in the back.
Okay.
I would throw in Olelo Hawaii there too, so you just cite the Olelo Hawaii word and you don't put it in parentheses. Throw that in the back too.
Yeah, there's a Hawaiian word definition section.
But there's still parentheses when they're cited, so.
Okay. How does everybody feel? We can have consensus one way or another. So all definitions in the back?
Yes.
Is that the way we are going?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, all definitions in the back. And then Olelo Hawaii, just Olelo Hawaii in the plan itself, and the translation will be in the back.
The definition is in the back.
Yeah. Everybody good with that? I see nodding. Okay, all right. Very nice. Are we ready for policies? Vice Chair Thompson is super ready. Excellent. We're gonna need that energy. Okay. So, let's see. Well, so we'll start in order. So we'll go down the list. And I know some people had comments on these. So, you know, who has comment? Yeah, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3.
1.2.
Okay.
So that would imply that in order to establish a safe route where a sidewalk is not, they're taking the space from another part. So like if they need a sidewalk that's 3 feet wide, they either need to take 3 feet of the road or whatever portion of that and take 3 feet of a property. So that could, make the size of it's great to have interconnected communities and all of that, but in application, if somebody wants to condominize their lot and then they have to put in a sidewalk because that's the gap, they just lost 3 feet of their property, which with the setbacks and everything, that would be substantial, could be substantial. But where there are other places where there's large space, that was just a concern of mine because you're taking from somewhere.
Comments from anybody else?
So I think Commissioner Lindsay makes a valid point there, and 2.1.9 is require all property mock of the Piilani Highway to be developed with 150-foot landscape setback to obscure development. One that's a little general, it says all property, so up the hill mile, it's still all property. You got to do 150 foot. What if you have a 150-foot lot down by the highway? So you can't go on your lot. We have an answer to that?
No, I'm just raising my.
You're going to raise your hand?
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, so some of that I can see it'll be problematic to property owners along there. I mean, I would say for sure encourage, and I would love to have bike paths everywhere, but some place, and that's under the purview of DOT too. So because they have intersections and lights and all that, so kind of crossing into two different obstacles, I guess.
Okay, let's start with 1.2 first, but Director?
That's exactly my request. If we can, just for the sanity of both Karen and I and Aggie and everyone who's going to have to implement what you say, if we can stay with one policy at a time. And I don't know if Karen wants to address the safe routes to school and why this was important to the CPAC. I think it's important to mention that.
Safe routes are I'm just going to actually read the definition of safe routes. The purpose of let's see. Safe Routes to Schools is a program which has the following goals: to enable and encourage children, including those with disabilities, to walk and bicycle to school, make bicycling and walking to school safer and more appealing transportation alternative, thereby encouraging a healthy and active lifestyle from an early age, and facilitate the planning, development, and implementation of projects and activities that will improve safety and reduce traffic, fuel consumption, and air pollution in the vicinity of schools. So it's specifically about creating walkable areas in the neighborhoods. It's not saying you're automatically going to take someone's easement to make it happen, but you're going to work towards a plan that makes that happen. And secondly, we're just focusing on this one before we get to the setbacks.
Yes.
So South Maui is a very difficult place to walk around, and it's not going to get better if we don't try.
Okay.
I guess this doesn't say require.
Okay, yeah, and I know that is definitely needed around Kulani Hako'i, and that was a problem. So, but I would imagine with the population being more local, there would be eventually more schools there. But that's a dream right now.
Okay, are we done on 2.1.2? Okay, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5. I believe somebody had a comment on 1.5.
Just a require comes in.
Oh, yes. 1.5 is a require. Oh, prior to or concurrent with development. Yes, we did get testimony on this. We've had written testimony on this. Commissioners, are you comfortable with require in this case? Or is this one to soften? Thumbs up which way are you saying?
I'm fine as is.
Okay.
Maybe I have issue just there with require. It's prior to or concurrently with the growth of South Maui region. And I don't really know what that means. It grows every day. So it's a little bit arbitrary, I guess. Yeah, because they're not planned or designed or constructed. They have to do all that before anything gets done. And that would put the brakes on everything, wouldn't it? You have an answer though, don't you?
Is born with an answer. So I think the language is a little softer than it sounds. It's prior to or concurrently with. So if you're building, let's imagine we're building a project, you would develop the transportation for that project, that system at the time of the project. So I actually don't think this is as heavy, and I'm sure there will be plenty of emails countering everything I'm about to say, but I don't think this is as heavy as it may seem, because the concurrently with the growth of the South Maui region, this is a fairly nebulous thing. If I were a planner looking at it, I would say, are they building the systems? Are they connecting to the systems? Are they doing what is necessary to improve this project or to get people to and away from this project safely? And that it has consistency with the Kihei sub-area transportation plan is good. So.
Okay, so it's enforceable enough the way it is. Okay. Okay.
When I see that, I think of expanding the Pi'ilani Highway. That's the first. I'm like, okay, so nothing else can be built until that is expanded because of traffic.
So not necessarily, and I rarely get an opportunity to talk about this, so I'm going to talk about it a little bit. The transportation system is not just roads. Transportation system is pathways, bikeways, greenways. It's all the different ways that people get around. And so there is a lot of, and I'm sure this is going to show up in the newspaper someday. There's a lot of people who are just like, we can't build anything until we widen Pi'ilani Highway. I actually argue that we need better bus systems. We need better ways for people to get to and through and from and around South Maui as well. So it is roads, but it's not only roads. And so I don't think the department wouldn't, I'm certain the department wouldn't interpret it that way. But I'm certain that we'll get emails that say other things too. So.
No, thank you for that. So we're good on that.
I'm
More?
wondering if you can add like transportation system, including other, public transportation, just to kind of roads, public transportation, blah, blah, ride shares. I don't know. Or like.
Such as?
Yes, such as these, such as example 1, 2.
Okay, then that brings us to 1.9. So, Vice Chair Thompson, now is your time.
Yeah, I think this one should be softened to encourage, just because we'll be tripping over some laws, DOT, and private property owners. Oh, I love to see bike trails, and I don't think we need 150 foot of them. Maybe that's where we run into a property that's narrow or somebody, then it's a 20-foot easement or something like that. Just a thought.
Yeah, I had a question written down on this of what properties actually does this apply to, Malk of Piilani Highway, because like Maui Meadows is all done. So it would be like,
I went through the tax map key maps and kind of clicked on, I was looking for the
are you
small.
talking to the mic?
I went through the tax map key maps and was kind of clicking around the small, there aren't a lot of smaller lots. So, I mean, that alleviates that, but the cost for an empty lot to maintain a landscaped setback is not, I mean, what is the purpose of this? What is the purpose of the setback? Is it for visual appeal or fire safety, community?
It says to obscure development from highway view.
Obscure development.
Perhaps this is one that gets softened. Thoughts? Vice Chair?
Love on that mic. Yeah, I think this one we have to soften.
So encourage property Malka of Piilani Highway?
Chair,
Yes.
I believe Karen has some background to share.
Oh, yes, please.
This one was added by the South Maui CPAC because it was something that was in the plans for like the Piilani Promenade and the other properties, Malka, of the Piilani Highway. The only time that this community plan takes effect above Piilani Highway is during subdivision review. So it wouldn't affect a single 150-foot parcel.
Mm.
So that's Makai of the highway is an SMA situation. Malka is subdivision.
So are you saying that it would be okay to leave it as is? Okay. Okay. How's everybody feel?
I'm on board with that. Can I just make a quick comment? Because we actually, there's 2.1.5 and then it says 2.1.9. So I think that just has to get fixed.
Yeah, I don't have
I will
to.
tell you why I did that
Sorry.
on
Yeah.
purpose, so that if you are looking at the CPAC notes, it's easy for you to find where the policies are. Because I've had experience with this and just trying to like sort all the policies and figure out where they came from. It's to make it your review easier.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks for the question, Commissioner Kealoha. Okay, so it sounds like 2.1.9, we're leaving it as is.
The other question I would have is potentially loss of like affordable housing lots in the 150 feet.
These are going to be large parcels that are being subdivided. And even as someone who needs affordable housing, would you really want to live right next to the highway? Just
How many people are doing it?
They live on the beach now.
It's out or up. Yeah, I like it. I mean, it's nicer for your drive. But I'll defer to the commission.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe just one question there then. Where did the 150 feet come from?
it was from an agreement with the Piilani Promenade, I believe, originally. Yeah.
Oh, because that was already in the plans. And that's one of the main ones, Malka of the highway. That's yet to be developed. Director?
Yeah, and just on those things, I mean, the last part of this item is probably the most important part, containing a pedestrian and bike pathway where possible. That's to get kids to Kulani High School, right, and other things. So there, when I first read this myself, I was like, but why? But the more I thought about it, it does create a possibility for that kind of multimodal corridor, which alleviates traffic on the roads.
Yeah, I agree. Although 150 feet to me seems a little excessive. That could be a 4-lane highway for kids and bikes and scooters, and it's a lot. So did anybody consult with the property owners?
No.
No.
I would say, I do know that the property owners that are Malco of the highway were very actively engaged in this community plan update process. We heard from them regularly, so I'm certain that I don't think they missed this.
Okay.
But not directly consulted on this particular subject. Most of the consultation with landowners occurred prior to the development of the draft plan. And so any other consultation would have occurred if they had participated in the community plan update process from that point on. So through going to CPAC meetings and things of that nature.
So there are some or most or any, we don't know, property owners that have been contacted?
They were at every meeting.
Yeah.
They were in every meeting.
I mean, not every meeting, but one of the property owners. Yeah, the Pi'ilani Promenade property owners were at a number of meetings. The Kaonaulu Ranch
And Haleakala.
representative and Haleakala Ranch owners or representatives were at the meetings.
Okay,
The
good.
project,
And did they buy in on this? They agreed. I thought it was a good idea.
they had the opportunity to speak to the policies, just like everyone else has the opportunity to speak to the policies.
So they did not raise that in their testimony at the meeting.
I'm not sure what that meant. Did they encourage it or for it or against it?
They were not on the South Maui CPAC. They had the opportunity to provide testimony. I can review the testimony and see if there's testimony for or against. I don't remember them raising the issue.
Okay.
I agree that it is wide. That's a lot. As a kid walking to school, I don't want to walk 250 feet before I walk to school. I mean, you know what I mean? If you're coming all the way from Mauka House and then you have to cross that and then turn down by the road,
So one of the pieces of testimony said to add in where feasible.
I like that.
Commissioner Kealoha.
I would be open to where feasible too, but I just wanted to make a comment that if my kid were walking to school, I would appreciate a 150-foot setback from a major highway like that. Does anybody have a feel for how far away the bike path is from, what is that? It used to be Mokulele. The
Maui Veterans Highway.
yeah, Maui Veterans Highway.
I think it goes, I do believe it goes to all the way to Kaiwahine, if I'm not mistaken.
But like how far away is that bike path from the highway? Like how many feet? I don't know. Might give us some perspective.
That's definitely closer than 150 feet.
as is the Paia one near Baldwin.
Yeah, the Paia one is closer.
But I think upcountry, like where Kikolike is, it's like right on the road and that's definitely too close.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yes, Director.
yeah, just from a design perspective, it's not, you don't see a ton of people strolling along Veterans Highway. And there's a reason for that, because it's not a comfortable place to be for a person. So I suspect one of the reasons why 150 feet, in addition to the fact that it's included in, I assume it's a fact, trusting my staff on this, that it's included in the Pi'ilani Promenade project, is that it does create safety, psychological safety for the walker, for the biker. And if it's not something that the landowners there objected to directly, it seems like it didn't have enough pushback to be changed. So I just encourage you to remember that this went through several months of CPAC and made it out like this. So just recommending.
Excellent.
Okay. So should we add in where feasible and move on?
Developed with 150-foot landscape setback where feasible.
Chair, I think you have where possible at the end of that sentence. Is that referring to something else?
You know, I kind of read that as containing a pedestrian and bike pathway where possible. Specific to that. Unless it's at the beginning, where possible, where feasible, require all property. Anybody? At the beginning or inside? Inside?
I vote for inside because it's at the end of the first section, and then the second, where possible, is at the end of the next
Okay.
section.
So I guess it could be developed with a 150-foot landscape setback to obscure development from highway view where feasible, or 150-foot landscape setback with where feasible to obscure development. Sorry, my pronunciation is not very good right now.
Chair.
Yes.
I assume if it wasn't feasible, it probably wouldn't have made it
Okay.
in the plan.
All right.
Yeah.
So maybe no need. Commissioner Kealoha. You're on mute.
I think I'm going back, yeah, what Commissioner Deco said, like, I'm fine with leaving it as is, but then also, I guess I'm getting confused because if we start saying things like, where feasible, then you have the intent to make this walkway, but then the walkway starts breaking up along the way. There's not like a continuous walkway. So I think I'm overthinking it, but
Yeah, we might be going there. So maybe if this came out as CPAC unscathed, then we just leave it in as it is. Okay, we can always come back. We can always come back. Let's move on. 2.1.10, 1.11, 1.12. This one had comments on it. This is a require versus encourage comments. Anyone? No comments? Good as is?
I have some comments.
Okay.
I'm just trying to see which testifiers were testifying.
And we have written comments on this from various parties also.
As I was reading it, pre-reading testimony, my own notes is I worry that this will discourage the building of workforce housing because they have to have facilities and programs that support, and they have to kind of create the wheel, which hopefully there's a wheel like that already that they could encourage instead.
So are you moving towards encourage versus require?
Yes.
Sure.
Oh, yes.
This is often an element that affordable housing developers request an exemption from. It's also one of the things that is most needed by people who require affordable and workforce housing. If you're only in a one-car household, then not having access to sidewalks is going to prevent you from getting where you need to go. So this is just saying that you're going to have access to sidewalks and bike paths, that you will have access to walk where you need to go instead of driving, which is more necessary when you don't have the money for a second car.
Yeah, this one I think we should go encourage on. One is because it's 296. It's kind of that important one there. So we can't change policy. And yeah, we love walking, we love connectivity. But this is one that should be encouraged, not require.
Commissioner Dicos?
Thank you, Chair. I actually think the opposite because it's 2.96. I think often, it is, you're limiting your profit on an affordable housing project, so you're going to cut corners. And unfortunately, I think the low income pay the price on not having, those important multimodal uses and all that. So I would tend to keep it at required.
Commissioner Vice Chair?
Sure. So some of those I see the problem with. We can require 100% affordable housing, and then none got built. So there's a balance in there. So if we want too much for even affordable housing, I don't think they should be shortchanged. But yeah, if they all need a park and all kinds of stuff there, a developer won't build. They go, okay, here's my property. So on some of this, they should have builders weigh in. Karen, do we have builders weigh in on any of these?
Yes, there were many of builders who testified as well.
Oh, good. All right.
Did you get testimony? Do you recall testimony on this policy?
The plan was posted and then people could testify on whatever they wanted. I would have to review the actual testimony.
Did you remember any of that testimony?
This moment, no, I do not.
Okay, thank you.
I feel like this is like the chicken or the egg situation. Like in Waihuko, they didn't have the bus stops and then they added the bus stops because the people needed a bus stop there. I mean, you could add space for facilities to support connectivity. But we need the housing first. Well, I mean, now.
Commissioner Kaloha?
I'll just weigh in briefly that I agree with Commissioner Dicos, and I feel like this is pretty broadly stated, support connectivity, biking. I mean, this is just, in my interpretation, saying to build sidewalks. So I feel like it's not a huge ask.
Commissioner Lindsay?
Where I get stuck up is the programs part.
Could this say facilities or programs? I see nodding. Yes, thumbs up. Okay. Facilities or programs. Okay, 1.3. Oh, sorry, 1.13. 1.14. 15. 16.
I have a comment on 16.
Okay.
I wondering if the department can clarify. I guess I'm confused about the intent of this and what it means. The words, how they're put together. I don't understand what it means.
That's very nice, very nice. Planner Comkowicz.
I'm just going to be 1 second. So the department recommended language was just to support the integration of wetlands and drainage ways with greenways and multi-use paths in and around the Lipoa Business District. Because this is actually taken from the current Kihei McKenna Community Plan. So it's kind of being brought over. And then what was added by by the CPAC was with priority given to the health and protection of wetlands. So to make sure that the wetlands are prioritized.
Is the Lipoa district, is that Malkov Pilani Highway? Is that whole like research?
No, that is
Or
down
also-
Kihei, essentially is where the wetlands primarily are.
Okay, I think that's where I was getting confused because I thought Lipoa district was up top.
Chair.
Yes, Director.
I actually have this noted as one of the things that we might bring back a recommendation on because for that very reason, because I read it and I go, is this Lipoa or is this Lipoa intersection? So I think that certainly needs to be clarified in this, especially given that the Maui Research and Technology Park is now going to be called Lipoa. So we need to probably clarify that in the plan. So that is certainly a recommendation that's going to come from the department at your next meeting. If that helps. I don't know that it helps all of the things that Commissioner Kealoha mentioned.
Yeah, that helps a lot. And that helps a lot. And I'm all for prioritizing the health and protection of wetlands. So I just was trying to figure out what was being, what they were trying to say here. But yeah, I think the Lipoa business district clarification would help a lot. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 1.17, 1.18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Well, 22 and 23 had comments about require versus encourage. Go with those.
That there needs to be a lot more information spread and in an organized fashion.
Oh. Vice Chair?
Yeah, I think 122 would be encourage. I don't know that we can, that one say we have to have a 4-lane highway in before any projects get done or start? Is that the way I read it?
It says prior to or concurrent with. So
yes.
I think it's this is tricky. I mean, it's a tricky one because if you're talking about how would this apply to a project in North Kihei? Karen, I don't know if the CPAC had, do you want to?
So it was meant to only apply to projects south of Kilohana Road or Mauka of Pi'ilana Highway, which I guess would be anywhere that's going to be developed, actually, now that I reread that.
I feel like this is the place where the budget would come in, where we could assign a dollar amount to it, or somebody could. And then the rest of the cost could be worked out within the community. Because there wouldn't be traffic there if there weren't people there already.
So,
and more people will just exacerbate the problem. but do the more people pay for it because the other people have it already? Or the county pays for it?
Planner Comquich?
Initially, this was an action, which I need to look it back up, and then it was changed to a policy. And I'm sorry, I do not remember the discussion of why that was changed to a policy.
You're talking about 22?
Yeah, 2.1.22.
I suspect it was changed to a policy because it would be reviewed at the time of application for projects. And so it makes sense as a policy. It also is worth noting that there are, I think, 4, maybe 3, maybe it's just 3 different projects that are already happening that have this as a condition, several of which you've reviewed, have this widening as a condition of their approval. So it's just something to keep in mind. It's clear that the community very much wants that highway widened. And it is on, there are a few projects on the hook for that already.
So this isn't, I guess, this isn't doing anything that any conditions of approval aren't already doing. To some extent.
I don't know that that's actually, it does seem like it would stop future projects as well. I need to ponder this a little bit.
Okay.
I'm going to be honest about that. If you would like us to, we can come back to you with a solid opinion.
Sure.
I would prefer to have that thought.
Commissioner Dugos?
Thank you, Chair. So, I assume this is to relieve traffic congestion. That's the purpose. But there are other ways to relieve traffic congestion. So I'd hate to penalize, it's not me, but it seems like you could penalize a project that might say, well, we're going to offset our traffic by having an awesome mass transit system, but they'd be stuck. So.
Good point. Okay, so we asked the department to come back with a. Okay. All right, that's 2.1, guys. Oh, almost.
2.123?
Okay.
1.3.
Or sorry, 1.3?
1.23. Yep.
Is that the same as that one says require a bypass highway? That's not one that's built, or is that future?
So in the Kihei sub-area transportation plan, I think has this. Also, the existing Kihei McKenna community plan has reference to a Mauka bypass. And as I understand it, those areas that bypass is already envisioned as part of the development of Kihei Mauka. Yes. And my staff is confirming.
So I live on West Maui and we have a bypass. In 30 years, we got a couple miles. And it's sitting, and it's not a very good road and wasn't even built well. But I'm afraid for this the same way. So we're going to wait. It's 30 years before a bypass will go in there, maybe more.
Yeah.
So nobody should live up there till then.
Director?
So what I would say is that there are some differences between the bypass in West Maui and the bypass that's envisioned in South Maui. Mostly that these developers have it included and they recognize the connection required. So even projects that are already on the books or already like infrastructure on the ground, like Lipoa, envision this connection already. So these it's just slightly different. The West Maui bypass kind of relies on HDOT doing it. And this is a little different, I think.
Still have to go through them.
Mm.
DOT still has to go through them, HDOT. And I mean, we could check with Ed Sniffen, but it's years to get anything done with them.
Director?
Karen,
Decades.
do you recall where in the sub-area plan, the Kihei sub-area transportation plan, how that project was ranked off the top of your head? We can come back with some
Okay.
more information about that if that's helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, and it costs to do it. I mean, you're asking people to build a bypass.
This was one the South Maui community did feel very strongly before there is more development, there needs to be more roads because there's already a traffic issue. There needs to be more roads and more infrastructure before you're putting people in newer areas. That would be the reason both of these are require.
Sure, I can understand that. But then you're cutting people off too. That's it. No more people live there, right? They can't build until there's a bypass in. My point would be that's a forever, even on a good scenario. I mean, a development can build their inner streets and connector streets and complete streets, but a bypass is not that. That's a huge job. And that's, you're taking property, right? You're gonna have to do eminent domain on some
It would
property.
be part of the development that is being proposed up there. It is in the development plan. It's not like in Lahaina where they had to kick out people who already had houses and take that property. It is part of the development plan to say, here's where the bypass goes. It's already connecting to where the Maui Research and Technology Park is.
Okay.
So in this case, it's on the developers themselves are on board with putting this
And
bypass
the
in.
need for it, yes.
I worked in the Focus Maui Nui project data entry early 2000s, and this was on there as a desire for the Kihei community already. Where I worked was in the tech park, and if you go there now, it's all stubbed out for major roads there, or major people moving areas. It's kind of a trip that's like all of this is built with no people there.
Yeah, that's that
But
meeting.
it has been a neat. I remember specifically doing Kihei community engagements and all of them, every single one, and I think I data entered over 2,000, and everyone in Kihei
Said put a bypass.
early 2000s said that.
And quarter century later, you're not gonna happen.
We got in a plan. That's
Yeah,
step one. Step one.
On we go.
Okay. So department will come back to us on 1.22 and 1.23. Okay, super. Thank you. Can we move on to 2.2 now? Yes. Okay, same thing. Any comments on the why is it important? How will setting this goal affect our future? Commissioner Lindsay.
I wanted to focus a little bit on the host culture and like family first and then individual, just swapping the words for family first, because we're all together again as a family, whatever you define that as. And then also that like switching to the positive in the second paragraph. A priority, or it isn't as it says, cultural connection is not as significant as it should be. Like instead say it is not a priority, or it's kind of like emphasizing that. That's it.
Should be more significant than it is.
Yes.
So the first part you said, it should be family or individual.
Yeah, just switch it to be more like inclusive of. I felt a lot of exclusion in this plan. I'm like, we're this, we're that, we're this. Not like including us, including you, are like this.
Anyone else? Do you need any more clarification? Okay. Okay. Policies? You can go in order again. Okay. 2.1. Or any on this page. Anybody have any on this page? Yes, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Just one, I didn't encourage the use of crime prevention through environmental design.
2.23.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. And I don't know what that means.
SEPTED.
Huh?
That is a planning convention.
it's capitalized. So
Okay.
that would be, we can look in the back.
It's through like how you,
Oh,
it's how you, like design hedging and building lighting in ways that like discourage loitering or sneaking around.
So you can always have a view on people that are in the area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm smarter now.
I guess, is that in the glossary? I didn't check the glossary for that.
Explain.
Oh, I don't think it's in, oh, no, it is. Yep. An approach to designing the physical environment to reduce crime and create safer neighborhoods. Anyone else?
2.6, just, it says composting toilets, but maybe there's a better alternative. Maybe science will come around before the plan does, and
Mm.
we are going to have another way of getting rid of waste other than, maybe explore alternate waste.
Yeah, what would you say?
Some things.
Alternative, something such as composting toilets or other technology. Would you call it technology? Yeah.
There is already incinerating.
Yes.
composting. Dr. D over there's big on composting.
Yes, Commissioner Ducos, please.
Yeah, we could change it, encourage to require. No, I mean, I understand there's a, there's a mental block around composting toilets. We have to overcome that. It's complete, it's like being afraid of sharks, really. I know it's ingrained in people's minds, but composting toilets, once we actually implement them and people use them, they'll be like, why are we still using wet toilets? They're disgusting. So I wouldn't worry too much about composting toilets there.
The technology is at its max, right?
Yeah, you'd be pleasantly surprised using.
We should all have composting toilets.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'm not saying, I'm just saying if, technology, because this will be 20 years.
Do you think we should allow for like other solutions? Or is composting toilets like encompassing enough to allow for future ideas that may come?
I mean, of course you can allow other stuff, but I mean, you can have incinerating toilets. They're kind of very energy intensive. They're pretty wasteful combustion. But
They're pretty good. They leave you like a can of ash like once a month, but they are energy, they're energy hogs. But I'd rather burn energy and not ship, spend 4,000 gallons a year to get my poop pumped around the island. And that technology will improve too, incinerating ones. And I know we have talked about that, and even his wife uses it. So he did pretty good well, but most of the girls I know, they would never do, they won't even use a public toilet, let alone a composting, because it's a little bit of work, right?
Not really, right? You like sprinkle in wood chips or something.
yeah, it's an educational thing. It's really, we should have a complete seminar on dry toilets because they're not. They're,
Yes.
Yeah.
I was in the crater all weekend and that was very much not a regular toilet.
And Chair, I have one question on our support the creation of public campgrounds within the region.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe can I get some info? What was the impetus of that? My fear is campgrounds in anywhere tend to lead to crime. And we're already kicking out campers. So I didn't know where was this in town or outside or?
There's an action later in the plan that identifies the park parcel as the desired location, but it just says to explore locations for camping. It is also something we heard that people would like to have more access to is camping, because it's a very local activity to do. And this was also one that is referenced to the Kihei McKenna Community Plan.
The existing plan.
Existing plan.
Okay, great. Thanks.
No, this is good. We used to have more campgrounds around, I feel like. And I think Tamara Harkajo, when she was director of parks, she was trying to push for more campgrounds all over the place.
I think in addition, they kind of charge a fee and then it encourages like pooping in a certain area, you know, kind of regulating it. I don't think the Papalawa ones have been real abused by crime or
Is that the one in Oluwalu?
that's the one right off the Pali.
My grandma's can't serve.
Yeah, grandma's.
Mhm.
But there isn't there's very few under 50 in Maui.
Oh, easily under 50.
But I bet if you include Kipahulu, then it
Mm.
like bumps it up.
But yes, I would say we could use more campgrounds.
May I ask a
Yes,
question?
Director.
So on 2.2.6, did we get, I'm sorry, I started writing something down and I'm not sure the vibe we got was, well, the vibe I got anyway, was not just limiting it to composting toilets. Is that, I'm sorry if the conversation evolved to just leaving it as it is, so I wasn't sure.
I think we're gonna
I
leave
think
it.
we leave it as is.
All right, thank you.
And Dikos will hold a seminar.
Yes.
I
I'm fascinated.
Got his wife on it. You guys will be next.
The way of the future. Yeah.
2.10.
Yep.
I wanted to add, there was testimony on this, but also I wanted to add the cultural center to this, like
Mm.
there is in Wailuku.
Mm.
I know when the council saw that, they kind of discussed having one in every voting region or whatever regions they call themselves. So I want to encourage that.
There is a policy.
Yeah, I
specifically
saw
for
that
the
also.
Cultural center.
Yeah. That when they talked about it, the one in Wailuku with the council, they kind of were like, this is inclusive of hula, which would be in the recreation. Put it in this category also. The cultural center in Wailuku is supposed to be like a hula gathering space but
Allow space. Director.
So you're talking about 2.2.9?
10.
Seeing hula as another
Exercise.
physical activity such as this, and there is a lack of places for hula practice on island.
So adding hula to it, not adding a cultural center.
I would maybe add halal space.
Space.
But hello would definitely cover much more things.
It would.
Is that okay? Okay.
Director.
I will also say this may be one we haven't had this is part of the reason why I didn't want to talk specifically about them, but I am going to bring it up.
Sure.
That this is actually an action and probably should be moved to the action section. So I haven't talked with staff because I wasn't certain if there was another similar action next to it. Because if we want this to be done, we need to put it where it gets done. So things get done over here. Otherwise, we're reviewing this when a project comes in, and that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Okay. Well, in that sense, would we want composting toilets as an action?
It's actually included in one of mine as well, but I wanted to think about it a little bit.
Okay.
So
Possibly action.
Possibly, yes.
Possible action. Okay.
Can we add the halal space to 2.29 also?
Um, 2.11 at the end, I was wondering if that's missing a word, but I think maybe that's just being used as adjective. Open space, undeveloped character.
artistic.
And
It's an artistic.
Probably adding and undeveloped character.
Yeah. Or else open, comma, undeveloped character. I don't know, whatever. It seems awkward as it is.
It does.
I will go back also to 10. There was testimony for increasing hardscaping in pickleball courts. I don't know if we should address that or
Yeah. That got brought up in testimony, yes.
Sorry, which one were you saying?
10.
2.10. The testimony was about concern for additional, pickleball courts, basketball courts they're adding hardscape to explore conversion of existing paved areas to these kinds of things. Which maybe that's like an explore or something.
I agree with the thought on that. I will just say that this was added because there was an entire meeting that was dedicated to pickleball.
There's a large
There's a large
pickleball
Yes,
community.
there is a, yes.
And it's ever growing.
Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Tikos.
So in 2.8,
Oh, sorry, 1 second.
Oh.
Close out 2.10 first.
Well,
Or is this related? Okay, go ahead.
Well, I think it may relate to that. And I think they're trying to say low, I'm not sure if low impact development is the right term here. I know it's defined in the glossary, but it's basically talking about drainage techniques. So it may address the following, the paving and stuff.
So maybe combine 8 and 10? Director?
Yeah, I think you don't have to combine things. That when projects like this will come through, we'll look at all of these.
Okay.
We'll look at all these policies and we'll go, okay, so you want to build a pickleball court? Well, you got to use low impact development techniques when building it. So, those are all we don't need one policy to rule them all in this case is what I'm trying to suggest.
So this effectively addresses that comment.
Correct.
Okay.
Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Tikos.
Maybe for the director, can you clarify, is that really the definition of low impact development? It's an approach to managing stormwater?
Get there, 1 second. So apparently the version I'm looking at doesn't have the version you're looking at, but on page 46, which is beyond where we are, there is a definition of low impact development. It's a subset of green infrastructure improvements that manages stormwater runoff as close to the source as possible by incorporating natural features into the urban landscape, e.g. rain gardens, porous pavement, bioswales, and increased tree cover. And it's at the rest of that definition is in relation to green infrastructure. So, I mean, there are many definitions of low impact development. And if you'd like to adjust that one, being that you have some skills in this area, we would be happy to hear that.
Okay, but it was meant to address stormwater. That's the intent.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I prefer a regenerative principles as opposed to reducing the damage of lessening the impact is actually, but I don't have language right now. I'm okay. Thanks, Chair.
Yep. Raise your hand. Oh. Commissioner Kealoha, did you have something? Okay. Okay, so 2.11, 2.12, 13, we had testimony on about encourage versus use.
Sorry,
Oh, sorry. Yep.
I include, can we prioritize use of the seeds in the local seed banks in the community or moku, not just maybe encourage the use of it in that moku?
So like the end of it instead of throughout the community.
So are you talking about 2.2.12?
Yes.
Okay, so this was the ending part where it says and encourage the establishment of native seed banks throughout the community was added by CPAC. That's to encourage areas where native seeds are growing, those areas to keep them there. So you don't like scrape it.
Yeah.
So you don't want it throughout the community?
No, we want them to use the same seeds from that community. Like South Maui includes like Waikapu all the way out to Honolulu. So you like if they already have the seeds out in Waikapu, then you don't want to bring the Honolulu ones over. And you put
So this is saying like keeping them right where they are. That was the intention of this
Okay.
policy, not to have like a bank where you deposit the seeds.
Okay.
But like, and if that's not clear, maybe change the language a little bit.
Director?
Yeah, also this is another good time to remember when this will apply. Because it's a policy, it'll only apply when a project comes in to be reviewed. So I would actually say if this is something we want to dive into more deeply, that this last sentence is probably an action. And not encourage, it should be establish native seed banks and whatever language.
and use, establish and use.
Yeah, something like that. So I think we might be able to tweak this and come back to you with something that is more specific to that.
And it might split into like policy and action. Okay. And I think establishing a native seed bank is a different action than using site-specific seed stock. So like the policy might encourage using site-specific seed stock. And then the action might be to establish the native seed banks. And I think the testifier was saying native trees are flora. So it could just say include native flora that are appropriate for the microclimate.
Trees are flora, but oftentimes it's the trees that are put in that are not the native trees.
Okay, so this is just to make it super clear.
But it
Okay.
should be trees as well.
Okay, yep, nope, we can go with that. Appreciate that that's in here. Oh, yes, we're 5 minutes to 7. Okay. Well, does everybody have hard stop at 7? Not that we're going to 8 or anything. I'm just just seeing.
Sorry, I have a hard stop at 7.
Okay, just checking. I'm just checking. Okay, hard stop at 7. Okay, we got 5 more minutes. Do we want to do one more? 13 had testimony on it of use versus encourage. I guess for the director, does this entail requiring the whole shebang, or is it like they do some little bit and it would comply?
Yes.
Any bit would comply.
I mean, as it's written, East Green Street. Yeah, so I mean, Green Streets principles in itself is the thing, right? So everything else in that policy is just saying what it does. So it's most of that policy is not really necessary to the point of the policy, which is to apply Green Streets principles. So it is vague enough to be.
It's okay as it's worded. Okay.
I don't think it's going to create too much issue.
I feel like all it's all or use.
You mean all new development?
Yeah.
What the commission's like.
Anyone else? Okay. All right. We'll move on.
Sure.
Yes.
If I may, I mean, since it seems like we're
2 minutes.
out,
Okay.
I just wanted to let you know that Iggy over here is a genius and pulled up the Kihei sub-area transportation plan. So the question about Kihei Mauka bypass, it's
Yes.
number 11 of approximately 87 projects.
Okay.
So it's highly, highly desirable. That plan was done in 2020. So it's relatively fresh, and the cost for it was 75.9 million, 76 million.
4 years ago.
Yeah, this is why putting dollar amounts in the plan is really tricky because they change almost immediately.
Yeah, it's probably over 100 million now, isn't it?
Depends.
That's for that bypass. So who picks up that, the developers pick up that cost? Sorry, up that way. So would the developers pick up on that cost
It depends
on?
on the project and how they set it up and all the coordination that happens as a result of putting that project together. There could also be federal infrastructure dollars that go into that. They've got a raise grant for North-South Collector last year. They could put in funding request for that. The funding package could be fairly robust, and it may not follow the developer at all, but maybe it will. It depends. So it's I can't just say yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Kealoha.
I have a quick question before we get off. I recall in the last meeting we had talked about including the South Maui Advisory Committee, and I was just wondering where we are with that.
Sure, I can answer that question. We're in the process of trying to find a time to schedule a meeting. Just like all of our boards and commissions, we lost a few commissioners, committee members, as a result of term outs. So there's some of that is an issue. So we are proceeding as quickly as possible to get them scheduled to have a meeting so they can meet the 60-day timeline.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we are at 7 o'clock on the dot. Thank you for all our progress today. We got part of the way through 2.2. So we will pick up where we left off next time, and we'll have maybe some updates from the department on policies and actions, and then maybe some new language for section 1. Otherwise, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Job, Chair. Showed up and kicked butt again.
Yay. This is my favorite thing. Yeah. I would